pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'll make a motion to approve tonight's meeting agenda as printed on the screen. The ones you have in front of you, just for the board's reference, F1 is removed. On the printed version, it's still stayed on there, but what's on the screen is correct. Can I get a second to approving the agenda? Mr. McCarthy with the second. Any discussion on the agenda? All those in favor? Thank you. And before we get into the agenda itself, just like to ask everyone to take a moment. It's our first public meeting since tragedy in the district, and so we wanted to have a moment of silence to remember the life of Larry Wink. We'll talk more about it later, but the number of cards and notes and emails that we've got, not only from parents but from other districts in New York, is really astounding and speaks to the impact that he had on so many. So let's all just take a moment, remember his life and his family. Thank you. Being that there are no blue cards, we'll dispense with the community open forum, move into personnel. Personnel, can I get a motion to accept item D in its entirety?
I'll make the motion.
Mr. McCarthy with the motion. Sorry. Mrs. Sunday with the second. Any discussion on personnel? All right, all those in favor? Thank you. Yeah. All right, with that, we'll move into our consent agenda. Can I get a motion to accept item E in its entirety?
I'll make the motion.
Mr. McCarthy with the motion. Can I get a second? Mrs. Wood? Any discussion on E? All those in favor? Thank you. And just a special note, we accepted a donation from the baseball athletic boosters of very nice donation of a pitching machine for the baseball team, so appreciate that and all that the boosters do for our different organizations. And with that, we move into our presentations part of the meeting. And first up, I believe, is going to be a capital project update from King & King and Turner.
I'm going to move out here, I guess, just so I can see the slides and speak. Good evening, everybody. My name is Pat Griffin. I'm with Turner Construction, for those of you who don't know me. So, go through that. Okay.
You get one point over here. It's not a smart screen.
There we go. Okay, so our technology project status. All your buildings listed below here are up and operating in the new system. Currently going through a few little things to improve some demo on some closets, but PV Moore is up and running in the maintenance center, stadium, middle school transportation center, Brewerton Elementary, AA Cole, Millard Hawk, and Hastings Miller at CSI, which we just did some improvements on. So, all right, so our update for phase 1 work. Millard Hawk, this summer we completed the roof membrane, currently working on the steel, that's the metal around the trim on the top. The steel reinforcement was installed for the snow load. New ceilings and lights in the reinforced areas that were under phase 1, which was primarily around the auditorium, gymnasium, and through the cafeteria down to the locker rooms. And some masonry improvements on the flashing system that tied in the roof system. Middle school, we had a little bit of masonry repointing down there, some drainage improvements to the field out back, and resurface the tennis courts. PV Moore, the roof replacement continues. We've shut down for the winter. Primarily what we've done is this terminal area with the kitchen, auditorium. We have the upper roof here to do yet next year, and that'll finish the roofing, okay? Brings us into phase 2. So as you can see behind me here is your new career center. So that was completed this summer. We are bringing shades. I think we're waiting on the shades to come in. New school beams, which is up and running and functioning. Crawl space abatement, which was primarily in the area of the auditorium and the large footprint that went down there. There was some bad soils. Auditorium demo. Middle school, we have 2 new boilers. They're up and running. And new outside chiller pads, and the chillers are set. I think you saw them in the update packet. AA Cole, we have 2 new boilers. They're up and running. Electrical panel upgrades in the building. Electrical fire system. New HVAC reheat coils throughout the building in different areas. Miller and Hawk, new corridor walls in Area 1, which I have a slide here, which will help in a second to show you. Yes. So Area 1 here is right down in here, and the new classroom doors, hardware's in that area, new epoxy terrazzo floor in that area, new corridor lighting in that area, new electrical panels in Area 1, new HVAC pumps, recirc pumps, and new HVAC reheat coils for Area 1 and other parts of the building as well. So we are currently in Area 2, which is right in here, and that is scheduled to be turned over during Christmas break. And we're going to repopulate a portion of that with classrooms, the 4 classrooms here and the 4 classrooms downstairs. You're primarily going to take up these rooms and these 2 here. I think these 4 here will be empty, which is good. So we're going to start, I think, 13th, start waxing on some of the floors. That'll be turned back over during Christmas break. And that's pretty much the capital project update. We're going to move into the security project update, which Amanda will come up and speak on that if there's any questions.
With A.A. Cole and middle school are done, there that slide.
So A.A. Cole, this is the work completed. We're still working on some of the stuff up there, but not all the electrical panels are done. We have done some of the electrical panel upgrades in the building. And next summer we have some floor tile in the cafeteria that has to be abated. We're going to put a new floor in the cafeteria area.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, I'm Amanda Thomas from King Architects. For those of you who don't know me, I just wanted to give you a brief update tonight on the security project, which is the next phase of work that is coming up. I just wanted to quickly start by going over the schedule. I think most of you have seen this, but I just wanted to revisit it. So we were working on design through June through December. So throughout the summer, we met with staff at each building, went over the scope, did a couple revisions on the office designs, which I'll share with you tonight. So we got through that. So we're looking in early December, which is in the next couple of weeks, to submit it to the State Education Department. Just a little update on where they stand on review times. For a couple of months, they were doing great. They were at 6 to 8 weeks review time. And we were really optimistic that everything was speeding up. Unfortunately, in the last month, the architectural reviews have gone from 6 to 8 weeks to 12 to 14 weeks. So, and what we've been hearing from them is they lost a couple of reviewers and they can't find the staff to replace them. So they don't suspect that it's going to pick up again anytime soon. So we are back in a situation where we may be looking at a third-party review. what we'll do is we'll get it submitted to the state. It has to be logged in before you make that decision anyway. We will look at the status again, and then we'll talk to the administrative team and you and make that decision once we get everything logged in. And I can give you a forecast as to when I think the review is gonna come back. We were hoping to have SED approval in February 2020. That date might be moving to target depending on the state. If we do a third-party review, we're looking somewhere in the range of 45 days for a review process. And as I said, architecturally, we're out 12 to 14 weeks if we just wait in line. So our hope is to bid in March of 2020 with approval from the board in April of 2020, and then construction will be 2 summers essentially. So June 2020 to October 2021. Does anybody have any questions about that?
Amanda,
Yes.
is that, those last 4 bullets, are they including the maybe looking at third-party review?
If we did a third-party review, I'm pretty positive we could hit those dates. If we wait in line, I think we're looking at something that's gonna move our dates out further.
And what's the significance of the third-party review? Is there an additional cost?
There's additional cost to that, and it's based on project size. So it's
Is
go ahead.
Similar to, because we use third party for our both normal capital project.
Yes.
Similar process.
Yeah, it's basically the exact same process. They log it into the system. You essentially send, or King on your behalf will send an email to BOCES. They basically will pull it out of the queue at the state. They tell you how much it's going to cost, and essentially that's eatable. It comes out of the incidental expenses of your project, and then they send it to a third-party reviewer.
So can we safely say the lean would be that we would pursue that without question?
That's what I'm wondering. Is there any reason not to just?
Well, that was my question. Why would you not do a third-party review if you're, I suppose BOCES is one that does it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they're our own people.
They don't actually do the third-party review.
Well,
They just
they monitor it.
they monitor it and distribute essentially to licensed professionals that have been determined to
So I don't
be
remember
acceptable
with
to
the
the
other
state.
capital project, does the board need to do anything, or is that a decision that you can just make?
It's essentially a decision that the district can make.
So I think the only reason why we wouldn't have done it was not that long ago. The turtles, before, without even doing third-party review, were super quick. And
Yeah,
now,
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, I think we voted on it last time, the third party review.
Yeah.
As a board.
We almost wouldn't have needed it this time.
Right.
But then within the past.
Yeah,
few months-
I was really hopeful that we were steady at 3 months of like really nice review times, and we were getting projects back in a really timely manner, and I just went, whoa, and just dropped off.
So since it's early December now, for all intents and purposes, can we just say if nothing changes, that's the path we're gonna take to get an official vote on it? Do we gotta wait 2 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever? What's the process?
Yeah, if you're confirming that we don't need to vote or authorize the third-party review, I think the board is saying that they would
Yeah,
definitely.
that's a district decision on a board level. There isn't anything within SED guidelines that says that the board needs to vote on it.
And
Process.
Yeah, so.
just knowing right now how long the wait is, we can move forward knowing that we're gonna do a third-party review. I'm good with that.
Okay.
Yeah, good. And then regardless of third party or not, a couple month delay or difference, am I reading the calendar right, that's gonna move us out to 21 and 22? Or is there an option to not only do within summers?
I think that's a point when I'd have to work with Turner and the team just to see what the ramifications of that would be. Our hope would be to still keep it in those 2 summers, and we would do our best to make sure that that happened by moving things around a little bit in the schedule, but you know, we would come back to you with that update if we thought that it was going to move out for that 3rd summer. But at this point, we don't see that.
Just a point of clarification, I thought we had to bid on it the last time. That's what I recollect, but obviously I could be wrong.
Have to authorize the third party?
I thought we had to vote on it.
Yeah, I know we did last time, let's put it this way. I think Tom's hearing us, which is, if we need to vote, then let's do it at the next meeting, because that's definitely sounds like the way we want to.
Yeah, I haven't at other districts, but however you decide to move forward is completely fine. You do have a couple of weeks before we actually get it into the state and it gets logged in, so I think that we can.
I think it would just be smart, since we did it the last time, that we put it on the next board package, just to say, let's vote on it, we got a record of it done.
I think that sounds like a good plan. Okay. All right. So I wanted to go over tonight, as I mentioned, just an overview of the work we've been doing in the last couple of months, design-wise, at each building. It's changed a little bit from the pre-referendum presentation that we did, and I think that's a good thing. It's evolved with, obviously, each building's input. One of the other positive things is we don't have any additions anywhere, which we did before. So we were able to bring all of the work inside as a alteration versus having to do additions at each building. So I think you'll see that throughout the presentation, which I think is really helpful. One, from a scheduling perspective, and it just makes each renovation just a lot less complicated if we don't have to put in new foundations and steel. We are modifying some of the canopies, so there will be some additional steel work, but we're not going outside the building footprint. So I wanted to start with AA Cole. So just a quick, at the top is just a quick rundown of what the scope is, just as a reminder. Secure vestibule, exterior door replacement, interior door and hardware replacement, which is pretty consistent throughout the whole buildings. At this building, we have window replacement, window film and tinting, and bollards at select locations. Let me see if I can get the little pointer to work. There we go. So the black arrow here represents the existing main entry of AA Cole, and the red arrow on each slide represents the new visitor entry at each building. So at each building, essentially, this door will remain open and the main entry for the students in the morning and to exit in the evening. Then this will be closed down and visitors will enter through this welcome center here and this door. So they'll enter through a door, they'll check in at the window, and then they can be buzzed through into the main office and go into the building.
And right where that red arrow is that bizarre roof with the big hole in it right now.
Correct, and we are filling in the hole
Awesome.
in the roof, so it won't rain on you when you're standing under the canopy.
And then fairly standard as far as it's double buzzed entry, both doors.
Correct. So at each entry, you will see that essentially through an airphone, they will, similar to what you have now, they basically push a button, someone can see who they are, they buzz them into the first door, they check in, and then they go through another secure door into where they enter.
And Amanda, there's multiple ones of these, but for each one of these, is the existing entryway hardened in any way, shape, or form?
We can do that in terms of film application, so I would say yes. But that wouldn't have a release on it because it would essentially, like the rest of your entrances, would be locked down. So hardware-wise and door-wise, they're mainly staying the same because we are adding that door next to it. Does anybody have any questions about Cole? I'll go on to the next building. In the right direction. The next one is Brewerton Elementary. This one was a little bit of a challenge because if you are familiar with that building, there is a entry point that is significantly further away from the main office than the other buildings. So what we're doing is we're going to add a walkway essentially so that you enter that building down in this area. So similar to Cole, creating that secure vestibule, rearranging the main office to accommodate that. So this door remains in a similar capacity that it is now, and then you just add the new door, and we've reconfigured most of the main offices to accommodate that. This one required a little bit more reconfiguration just because we're entering now in the center of that office versus where you typically enter it, which is right here.
So let me ask you a question. So
Sure.
in the morning when kids are arriving in school,
right?
Yeah.
So are parents and kids coming through the black arrow, and it's only after?
Yes.
So everybody's gonna be allowed to come through the back arrow to a certain point, and then it's gonna be closed. And then it's more secure how?
Because all visitors, again, I hear what you're saying, and that's a very valid point. Every district, in New York State at least, sends kids through that main entrance. Doors are open, kids all pile in. That's where you put your SBO out there, administrator, staff, they see them come in. Nobody has them all come through the vestibule area when they're coming in at the beginning of the day. So where it's making...
No, I understand that, Tom. But the question I'm asking, if I'm coming with my child
Yep.
and I'm dropping them off at school, as a parent, am I gonna be allowed to go through the black arrowed area?
No. If you come after 8:15 or whatever time.
He's saying in the morning though, when they're coming in with the kids, then yes, he would be coming through that black door to drop the kid off before the school day starts.
And that's one of those things, to me, it's a policy and procedure thing where we can express our opinion, because I hear what you're saying. Yeah,
Well,
policy and procedure-wise, we shouldn't.
I've said this all along, is that what's the risk that you're trying to mitigate when you're doing this, okay? You're not gonna be able to mitigate everything. I do this for a living. So if you're going to control who's coming in and out of your school, then you're not mitigating the risk that somebody was walking in with their kid that's gonna do harm. And they're not, or at least if they're going through the other entrance, right? So if it's just a way to put in a secured entryway for visitors, then that's what we're doing. If we're not changing, because Brewerton lights up like a Christmas tree, we're not changing anything other than we're creating a different entrance and how people are gonna come in, visitors are gonna come in and out of the building.
Correct.
Well, I think it's all the same.
Well, no, it's all the
It's all the
schools,
same.
but I know this school better than the other ones, so that's why I'm bringing it up. I wanted to be clear in my questioning, so.
But Steve, your point goes back to what I said earlier. Is the primary entrance going to be hardened in any way, shape, or form? And that is whether it be observatory, whether it be material-wise, that's still going to be your weakest point right there. And you're hitting right on it. You're hitting on it. You're basically compounding my comment.
Right. No, because, I mean,
How do we solve
you have
that? I don't know.
you have schools here in this area that go through a metal detector before they go into a school. So you're mitigating that risk of you don't want any weapons to come into your school, so you run them through a magnetometer. But we're here, we're gonna allow folks to come and go in the main entrance before we lock it down to visitors that are gonna go in the second area.
So what we can do, like what Andy said, is procedural. If we wanted to look at this and say when a parent is dropping their kid off, a parent can come through that door. The parent can bring their kid through that main door, the red entrance. We could, absolutely, that's a procedural thing, but that is always, and that's the exact same thing that Armored One had said when we met with them, that at the beginning of the day, I mean, we're up here at the high school, you have hundreds of kids pouring through that main point. To put them all through a vestibule area would add 45 minutes, an hour to get every kid to come through a certain way to check to see. But what I hear you guys saying is a good point. If a parent is coming in for whatever reason before school, usually it's after 9 o'clock, at least the building that I'm at right now, they've got to come through that, they would have to come through that area because the kid would be late. So, but what you guys are talking about is when every kid is just entering the building and parents are coming with them, there's no reason why we can't say if you are bringing your child, you need to then come through the security area because you are an adult and you're not a student.
Yeah, if you're not a student and you want to enter the building,
Then you need to go through there.
red arrow, period. That, for me, that's a policy procedure thing, but I think to Steve and Mike's point, if I'm reading it right, is, and I don't want to discuss it here because we're in that area of what we do and don't talk about in public, but in executive session, we talked about, what we are and aren't doing to harden that entrance, that student entrance. And so I'm feeling like we are going to need to have a follow-up conversation on what is or isn't being done at that entrance. The red entrance makes perfect sense.
Agreed.
The black one does not.
Yeah,
Based
Yeah.
only on this, I'm not saying it doesn't, but we need that.
And I would rely on Armored one's opinion on that. Obviously, they're the experts in that, in the security of these entrances. So we're essentially proceeding in a way that they recommend. So if you have a concern, I would definitely bring them in to that meeting along with myself,
Yeah,
just
so-
so that we can
Well,
have that
yeah, but-
discussion.
If you're at 100% design, it's done.
We can make
There's
changes.
not much room in that office to begin with.
Yeah, but it was my understanding that we were gonna redo, that there was gonna be work on the outside of the building, that there was gonna be foundations dug, and that there was gonna be, that was my understanding of it, and then we're here, and that's different from what was initially being told.
Just to clarify, even with the additions, this is what it essentially looks like. So even with the addition, all it was doing was basically creating that secure entry, which is what we're doing here.
That area is not, I mean, it is a small area.
Right.
It's not good at all.
Well, yes,
Can we have an entryway through there? I don't know.
well, my question is based on that. We were, the prior plans, and I know those were just kind of the first draft, but it had all this exterior and foundation work and all this stuff. And now I'm seeing, I see there's different walls being added to existing areas, but are we saving costs now? I mean, it seems like a substantial amount of money is not being spent.
No, so that was a conversation that had come up a long time ago when Paul looked at this and then talked with King. It was going to significantly cost a lot more money to do it the other way than to actually put the hole in the wall and bringing them through. And that money and savings could then be put into making the offices much better. So it was much more expensive the other way.
But the other way was the way that we put it out and we approved it. So that's what I guess my question is that extra money being spent somewhere else?
Yeah, in all the offices, because we didn't have the money to reconfigure not only this building, but wait till we get to the middle school. That's going to drastically look different. That we were going to eat up all of our money and not be able to reconfigure. When she shows CSMS, you're going to see how that has drastically changed, that we now have the money to do that by being more efficient with that front entrance. But you guys bring up great points, and we could put a sign that says any parent entering the building at any time needs to come, or any visitor needs to come through that secure area. I don't have a lot of parents coming into CSI right now. I just have students. The only parents that come in, the only parents that I have coming in are parents after 9 o'clock. And so then there's only a couple here and there. Pearl can say she's buzzing them in. But for the most part, the kids are all getting off buses, parents are dropping them out up front. They're not coming into the building with their kids. So I don't see it being an issue at all. If we make it across the board, any visitor coming in has to come through the red arrow entrance.
Yeah, and I get that, and I feel it's a really unpleasant conversation to have, right? But the reality is, all this money is not being spent so much for parents, it's for someone that would want to do harm, right? What I am not sensing, and again, I don't necessarily want to talk about it here, I don't want to, it shouldn't be public knowledge, but I feel like we have created a strong point with the red arrow and done nothing to strengthen the black entrance, and therefore, what is the expenditure of money gaining us? Is that summarizing even close? Okay.
Yeah.
So that's, I think what we need is, if we can follow up, is through email, through Tom,
Sure.
what's being done at the quote student entrances to physically stiffen it and harden that entrance? And then we can determine whether or not we need to bring in Armored One or anyone else, but I think until we know that, I don't have a comfort level on it.
Well, yeah, and I can definitely put something together for you guys. I just think that it'd be easier for us to do it in writing and just submit it through Tom, and then we can have that conversation, and if we need to do it in executive session, we can definitely do that. I think it's an easier place to.
Can I just clarify, that's not just the student entrances, that's any of the exit entry points in the school that were going to be hardened. Like, if there was a double door in the back, I thought there was discussion, like other, not with extra entrances or anything like that, but talking film, things like that, where people could, okay.
Yeah, the hardware is being changed
This
at
entrance right
all
here would be a
entrances.
classic example, right here. This is an amazing weak point for somebody to get into this building, and a very critical building, a room in this building.
And that's,
Open up the door and walk in. Open up the door.
Drive a car right through that.
And walk in.
that's what the bollards are for. That
Yeah,
was
so-
the recommendation.
Open up the door.
So yeah, I think to your point, in writing.
So I don't think anyone, I think the point is though, the hardware is changing, so no one can open up.
I can open it in the day. No. It's just saying, maybe I'm wrong. If I'm sitting here and I'm in cahoots with somebody else that says, listen, I'm gonna go over there and at 12 o'clock, I'm gonna open up that door, you're gonna come in, you're gonna walk into the cafeteria and you're gonna start shooting, which would be in any building.
Yeah.
But not if it's mechanically locked down and you have a 20-second egress. There's a whole bunch of things. You can't walk into my 3 federal roads and open up a door that I don't want to open that isn't going to at least alarm, okay? And it's going to sound off and I'm not going to know about it. And I'm not saying that we need to take it to that level, but an understanding of how we're going to secure the building is what we have in front of us, okay?
And it's more comprehensive than what this is showing us, yes?
I don't know.
My impression of what we were looking for is more comprehensive than this. Because I see an amazing weak point in every one of these diagrams, and I could walk around every one of these buildings and I could probably find at least 10 or 15 weak points that if we're not addressing them, I thought we were addressing them. If we're not addressing them, we need to retool this effort again. That's all I'm saying.
So
I think all your just to clarify, all your exterior entrances are being addressed with hardware and films and things like that. I think the key is to have another discussion just to make sure that we're meeting everyone's expectations, because I think it's clear that there's a lot of questions and I want to make sure that we're meeting all of those expectations so that everybody is comfortable. So I think we could definitely have a presentation that goes into more specific detail. And then I would get some people here, our door hardware consultant, that can speak more intelligently to door hardening and things like that, and several experts that I think would be helpful so that you could understand exactly what we're doing.
Yeah, so I think we'll leave it to Tom Gordon to coordinate that, but
Sure.
that will definitely be executive session.
Yeah, that sounds good. Okay. So Hastings Mallory is a similar situation. This is the main entry here, and then we have a new secure entry going directly next to it, near the red arrow. This building has the exterior door replacement, interior door and hardware replacement, the window replacement, the window film and tinting, and the bollards as recommended around the building.
Can I ask a quick question, sorry?
Sure,
So
of
looking
course.
at Hastings diagram reminded me, originally with A. Cole, I think, it was a second set of double doors, and I understand that probably was because that was gonna be the primary entrance, but is there a reason that we didn't add that set? I thought that was the standard that you guys, that was suggested to us, to have double doors at that main entrance. So I know Hastings already has it, but.
Double doors at the main entrance.
Yes, like there, the black arrow. I know
The
those
black,
exist
the black
in-
arrow. Well, here, let's go back and look.
Yeah, Virgin doesn't have it, you're
No, right.
They have a double door. They just don't have,
right. Two sets.
Two
What I mean, yeah,
sets.
double.
that's not actually, all of your exiting is based on code, essentially, so this essentially meets the code.
Andy, I think the double door was to have a holding
Oh,
area
you
for
want, you're talking an
visitors coming in.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
you're talking an interior double door.
Yeah, they were talking about a
Yeah.
vestibule.
And we could definitely, if that's something we wanted to do, we could definitely do that, that's not an issue
But if
at all.
it's just a student entry and it's gonna be shut down other than entry and exit times in school day, I don't know if they're both gonna be open or closed at all times. I don't know what the sense of having two separate doors are.
This actually entry did have a double door at one time. It was actually removed at some point in time. It was actually right here. There's still a frame there. We could actually put it back in that location or we could move it forward. I think the hard part is the cafeteria entrance at this location comes out into there. So, and you have to have a certain amount of space between the vestibule doors, but I can definitely look at that.
I mean, I think
Is
a
there really any
common,
advantage to a double door though, now that you're opening it up to
Right, and that's what
No,
it-
you're basically, it's just another door
that
that
they would walk through.
they have to walk
Yeah.
through, that you have to hold open essentially
But my
key
question,
times.
my question earlier about whether it's hardened, getting hardened, similar to Mike and everybody else, like, one of the concerns for Burden and for Cole was the fact that from the doors, you can see right into the cafeteria. And so, that goes back to the question, which, I don't know how much we really want to get into it, but whether there's going to be any efforts taken to prevent someone from standing outside and causing significant, you know what I mean?
And I think that's a conversation we can have. I think there's different options between the film and tinting, which we've discussed previously. So I think it's just establishing a level of expectation at all your entries, and then we can simply apply that expectation to every entry.
The
If that makes
conversation I
sense.
had with Arbor One originally is I shared within the church, and they go to the school right next to Holy Family.
Yep.
They just got the tin. So you just can't ever see it. And so that's something that they had talked about that we could do specifically in that situation, that you would not be able to see it at all.
Sure. And we can definitely look at that. That's the item here. Are we good with Hastings Mallory temporarily? Millard Hawk, so these are the main entry doors right here. We can't create a second vestibule in this area, so we'll have to talk about that, just because of this main corridor here is the main circulation for the building. What we are doing is extending the canopy and creating an entry to the side here. So this is where you enter currently to the main office, so you come around here and enter here. Instead, visitors will go through this entry into the main office and then into the rest of the building. CSI again is similar. You come in through the main set of doors here, but we're creating a secure vestibule in this location, so this is where visitors will come in, check in through the window and in through the door. At the middle school is, we mentioned, underwent a pretty significant renovation only because there wasn't a way to create a secure vestibule with the main office being directly across from the doors. So you come in currently through these doors and the main office, oh, my pointer's dying, is right in front of you. So what we've done is moved that main office over to the side so that it's directly adjacent to the secure entry. And then we've kept the counseling office in a similar location and then moved the classrooms that were down here over to that, where the main office was. It's typically recommended that the secure entry be directly adjacent to the main office. So this allowed us to do that and not have a sort of strange vestibule away from the main office. And then the high school, very similar. The main entry remains the same, and then we've created a secure entry right next to that and allows to check in here and enter into this area and then into the rest of the school.
So in the middle school, what's the difference in the new versus, like, when I go to middle school today, I haven't been in there a while, I must admit, but, excuse me. If I go into there's double doors, there's 2 sets of double doors at the middle school, correct?
Correct.
Still?
Yep.
So if I go into the first set, I have to get beeped in by somebody in the office today.
Correct. Yep.
Nothing's changing other than where I go in.
No, it is changing because you get beeped in twice now. Right now, you just go in here, and once they beep you in, you're into this area.
Okay?
Because I can get buzzed in here, you have to trust that I'm gonna go across to the main office and do what I need to do,
Okay.
because right now you can go down here.
Yep.
This door, you get buzzed into the vestibule, you check in behind a window, and then you go into the main office once
And you have
they,
to get buzzed into that second door.
through the second door.
So they get to speak to you and visually inspect you before you can
Okay.
access the building.
Similar to all the other entrances. Because right now, in most of the cases, you get buzzed in the first time, but you don't necessarily go through a second check-in, however you check people in, whether it be Raptor or other system, and then you buzz them into the rest of the building. But they're still contained in that main office, so that's your third area, and then you can direct them where they need to go from there. So the middle school now is very similar design to all the other buildings. The challenge was the main office is over here, so you couldn't really create a secure vestibule across the corridor.
So with the high school, in the follow-up with the other information requested, can you let us know how the district office entrance is being addressed and what's
Yeah,
happening there?
and we do have a design for that, just didn't include it in this. Yep, I can definitely do that.
Do you have the estimates, the construction estimates for your design done yet? Or do you know what the cost breakdown is?
Turner is working on them, I think they're just reviewing them now, so we should have them shortly.
With each of these revisions, where is the SPO's office in relation to this entry point?
It depends on the location, but in this case, the school resource officer is right in this location. So,
Okay, and
and
generally speaking,
they're
my
usually
point being
directly
is that,
adjacent.
do they have direct contact with this entry point in all the configurations?
So what I've seen is the only one that was different was the middle school, and in talking with the special control officer at the middle school, his office has the same kind of glass, you can't see out, he can see out, you can't see in, that looks right at that main entrance. And so that's what we discussed, that he wanted to stay right where he was, as opposed to being already in the actual office, main office area. So then that way, he's got a vantage point from his office, he can look right out and see those double doors and kids coming in. That's what he felt was most secure, and that was a conversation that we had with Armored One way back, and they liked where that location was. But for the other ones, is getting them up to the front. So I know already at Millard Hawk, they put the SBO's office right up there, right when you come in. So that's the goal. That's your question, is to get them up and not further away.
It's been a while since I've been over to Millard Hawk. The last time I was there, the SPO's office was going to be put 2 or 3 offices away from the entry point. Have they rethought that as per our discussion?
In talking to Amanda, yeah. So apparently that was taken into consideration and then changed to put it right there. So I believe his office is literally right when you come in. It's going to be right there at the left.
And I think, Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, you've been working with the school resource officers at each building just to make sure that they're in a place that they're comfortable with, directly adjacent to the entries.
Yep.
So they might not be sitting right at the check-in counter, which isn't necessarily.
No, I understand
recommended.
that. My question wasn't necessarily be answered, it was more of a point of fact.
Sure.
The SPO should be in a position that they have immediate access to what we have already identified as possibly the weakest or one of the weaker points.
Correct, the main entry
And that's the
point.
main entry point.
Yep.
So if they're 3 or 4
Absolutely.
offices away and they can't see it, then they need to have electronic methodologies to see those access points
Yep,
and be alerted for such issues.
absolutely. Okay. So questions, obviously we have some, but we'll follow up with a written document, and we'll get that over to Tom and team, and we'll go from there. And if we need to schedule something, we can definitely do that.
Yeah, and I'm sure what we'll do is an executive session. Once I get that, we'll have somebody from Armored One, and we'll have our SBOs in there as well. So
Sure.
I want these guys and ladies to feel comfortable. To make
Absolutely,
sure that
as
it's been
do
a
we.
process going back over a year and a half, and we had Armored One first sit down, so we can align everything together. So once we
Yep.
get that, we'll establish that executive session.
Yes, that would be great. Okay, thank you, we'll see you again soon.
Thanks a lot.
I'm gonna leave the clicker here. Is that okay?
Thank you.
Next up, we'll invite Mr. Bartholomew and Ms. Kaplan. Update on food service and a proposal for food service.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for letting us come in front of you and speak. I've got an interesting problem that I've never had in my career of 41 years, and that is We're at a critical point with staff where we just don't have enough staff. Anybody that's an employer understands this. And in doing so, we've had to come up with some different ways to solve this because we have to get your kids fed. First of all, I want to assure you that you're fully staffed at your elementary school buildings and always will be. The shortages are here at the high school and at the middle school. We've always kind of done that because it's easier to absorb shortages in the larger buildings where there's more folks. But we're getting to a point where it's very critical. And so Amy and I sat down and talked about it, and we've come up with a solution that we'd like to present with you today briefly and get your support on. For the most part, we've been running with subs, but we're not finding subs that'll come work for us full time. And so Amy will explain that a little bit. A couple of the other things that we did was I wanted to point out our new School Beans 2 location. You're familiar with our first one, which you were kind enough to have built for us, but we run into a problem out there.
Well, we run into a problem out there where, because construction is still going on, we have limited access to that, so we're losing sales there. We didn't want to do that. So temporarily, we opened a spot over here in this location, as you can actually visually see, which was an area that would not be used. Thank you.
And in doing so, we've been able to solve a couple of problems. Turn this slideshow over to Amy because she did put it together and she ran the numbers. And I think you'll understand that in doing so, with this proposal that we are going to present to you, we're actually going to save money, which is unusual. So I'll leave this to Amy.
Oh, thank you. I do have some extra notes and it'll go on the slideshow. So what we did is, starting in September 2019, this year, we were staffed according to how we had been in the past. So we started off with 2 shared managers. Shared manager is an individual who is responsible for multiple buildings. We have a secondary manager who's responsible for the middle school, high school, and an elementary manager who's responsible for all of the elementary buildings. They in turn oversee all of the staff outside of our office. We have 7 senior food service helper positions. This includes our temporary position that is located down at CSI currently. And the senior food service helper is an individual supervisory position. All right, so they supervise the employees in those buildings when the manager is not present. All right, they do have some authority over, making sure that the jobs are getting done, assigning tasks, things to that nature. We also had 20 food service helper positions. But when we started the school year, we had 5 of those positions open. All right, those positions were for 2.75 hours a day, which is really kind of difficult to find somebody who wants to commit to 2.75 hours in the middle of the day. All right, used to be back in the day, moms dropped the kids off at school, they get on the bus, something to do when the kids are at school. Now a lot of times those families need dual incomes full time, so that's much more difficult for us to find those individuals to work those 2.75 hours. So in total, for the department, on a daily basis, without the managerial labor, we're at 94.5 hours a day in September. All right. As far as the open positions, we do have a sub list. Dave was telling you it's been more difficult finding subs because just like the permanent employees, there aren't very many subs who want to dedicate 2.75 hours a day either. On a temporary basis, because it's not every day, it could be every other day. Their availability isn't full-time, on a regular basis, etc. Okay? So with that being said, I'm just going to put my notes down as I go here. So that's September. In September, we're also told we have 2 employees, very intricate employees, who decided to retire. Throw in the hat, you might say, okay? Very long-term, very intricate employees. We had a manager that retired, and we also had a very important senior food service helper who retired out of this building, okay? That it hit us a little hard because they were, like I said, they're very impactful in what we do. So we acted right away when they announced in September that they were going to retire, try to look for an opportunity to fill those positions. Obviously, we post them, we fill them. What's that do? opens up another opportunity somewhere else down the line.
We did come up.
And we did promote within, yes, absolutely. All right, but in turn, it left us with, November. All right, because we did fill that in October, we filled those positions, so November, we're back still with 2 shared managers, just what we need, 7 senior food service helpers with 1 open position because at Hastings Valley, because that individual actually came up here to the high school, the individual that was there. And now 18 food service helper positions because 2 employees, or the 2 that came up, a manager and a senior food service helper position. So now we have 7 open positions.
Can I just clarify something?
Correct.
In September, it was 7 senior food service helper
Correct.
positions, and there was no openings?
Correct.
So we added a
No.
position?
No, we still have 7 positions, but with 1 open.
So
we have,
one of those is open? That's what you mean, so it's not
Correct.
18 plus 7 open?
no. Currently, there's 18 positions, but 7 of those 18
Okay.
positions are open. I'm sorry if that's confusing. Yes. Okay. Well, it dropped by 2 because those 2 individuals went into a senior food service helper and a manager position. Okay, so as it snowballs. All right. But we're still, once again, at 94.5 hours a day. Okay. So in looking at this, we decided, what is it that we can do? We can't just not offer the students what they like. We can't put the students in a position where they aren't getting the service that they deserve, all right? So then we have to reflect on the entire department, all right? So we observed both of the buildings with the openings, and determined the 2 different, go ahead.
Wouldn't it still be 20 and 7, but, and 20 and 5? If you go back to September,
I have the same question.
if you go back to September, all right? It says 20 and 5.
Mm-hmm.
Now we go to November, should it also be 20 positions, 7 open?
We're
Or
going
did you
to,
lose 2 positions?
we've lost, we're losing 2. We're gonna, when I show you how the numbers are gonna come into play, those 2 opportunities are positions as a dishwasher that we're not utilizing.
Yes.
We're not gonna be offering, we're not gonna be using
Right
it
now,
right.
we still have 20.
Right now, currently, in November, it'll come down. Those numbers will actually decrease.
Let me see if I can clarify this, because I'm on the same, I was just going over that, Andy. So you had 20 positions and 5 of them were open in September. You went down to 18 positions because 2 of those people moved up.
Correct.
But you got rid of their positions, so how did we go up 2 in open positions?
We didn't get rid of their position.
No.
Their position's open.
There's
So then why doesn't it say 20 food service helper positions still?
Should say 20 plus 7 open positions.
Right, so, because what we're doing is we're gonna eliminate a dishwasher in each building, so we're getting rid of 2 positions, 2.7 hours.
After this? So, okay.
This is what's the series plan that she's gonna show.
Okay. So what we looked at were the dishwasher positions, that which really doesn't impact a student. Okay, all it does is impact the employee because the employee has to be able to operate the dish machine, clean the dishes that are used to cook. And then the only place that we noticed the students wouldn't have been impacted were the cash registers. And what I mean by is, like, for example, here, there are 2 different doors here. The students feed in, horseshoe shaped, and there were 2 cashiers here. So what we noticed as we were watching is there wasn't a line between the cashier and where the students were getting served. So the cashiers are standing like this. So we decided that maybe we will try and make that 1 cashier serve both sides, both lines, and it works very smoothly, all right? So we didn't eliminate the position, we just didn't have a person put there, so it did alleviate an adjustment.
We also did that also in the middle school as an experiment, and it actually worked.
Yep. So that was the next place I was going, is we've done that also, the dish machine and the cashier at the middle school. So in turn, what it's done is it's allowed us to fill 4 positions without actually filling 4 positions. Okay? So what we've done is we're going to propose this restructure.
In essence, you just reallocated a couple people, is that correct?
Correct, that's all
Okay.
we've done. We haven't taken any jobs away, we're just reallocating positions, that's all. Yeah. So what we're proposing is restructuring the staff in this building and the middle school, just as I mentioned. We're gonna eliminate 2 positions in each building for a total of 4, that of which there was nobody in the positions to begin with, so we're not getting rid of any jobs, okay? But we would like to add 15 minutes to the contractual workday of each part-time employee that we currently have. They were working 2.75 hours. In order to offset the other 2 employees that are no longer going to be in those kitchens, if we add 15 minutes to the employees who are still in those buildings, it will help us to get all of the jobs completed throughout the school day, all right, and not give any distress to the students in any way. Okay. So, the staffing of School Beans shop was located out in the main corridor. Most of you have seen that. It's a wonderful blue room. So, that employee is also part of the same working staff as what's here. So what we were doing is we were rotating that staff. They were taking turns going out there, so nobody was out, felt like they were out on an island at any given time, okay? But if we were to, considering the fact that it's not really operating to its optimum operation right now with the construction, there's some limitations so that there's not a lot of opportunity for the students to get out there right now because of the distance. We thought that it, like Dave said, we're going to move School Beans 2 back over here so that all of the students at any given time throughout their lunches are able to utilize it rather than wait in line.
And it brings another body back into the kitchen where when they were out there on their island, as we call it, they weren't helping anything to do with the kitchen at all. Bringing it in here, there's between serving lines, we now have an extra body here also, which also helps us with.
So, only because I'm not in the high school, just to clarify, so this is only open during lunch?
This will be open during lunch and after school.
And after
now.
school.
And the one out in the hallway will be open in the morning, just this year, until that construction gets cleared up. Because with that construction that's out there, it's impeding the sales. And in doing so, it's becoming expensive to operate, and I don't want to lose that opportunity. So if we do this temporary here, which is called this kitchen, we'll still have our sales and everything coming in. Still have access to a school needs, and we won't lose it.
And just for full transparency, so they're all aware, so it became a management issue where Kristen and I realized because of that the temporary wall, we had a bunch of kids that were being sent, that were going there, and nobody could walk through. So there were fire code issues, the whole 9 yards, because they were packed in because of that fake wall made a narrow entrance.
Right.
And that's what he's talking about the construction.
Right.
So that safety came first, we understood that. We don't have any problem with that. But we needed to react, so that we still had our business going. And that's why it's right there.
So next year when it opens and construction's all done, you're gonna go back and staff our break and cool these rooms that we're doing?
We'd love to.
It's still going to be staffed in the morning.
Yes.
And the goal would be never not to close it at all, and we'll deal with that when we get there. And hopefully we'll get the time and some of our current employees, maybe we'll get some people to apply. Our biggest problem is we're kind of the JV team for the district. People coming to us entry level, whether they see a job in maintenance, pays 8 hours a day, or a locker that pays 8 hours a day. We lose them. If you look around, there's a lot of people working here that used to work in food service. But we accept that too. That's how that works.
Nature of food service.
Nature of
It
food
is,
service.
it is.
Well, low unemployment hurts someone. This is,
Yeah.
I mean, that's the reality.
Me persevere through this for my whole entire career, but I have never seen it more critical right now. I see you nodding your head. It's just amazing how it's just not good to say. I'm sure that it's, we gotta get real clever with this. Figure out some ways. And one of the things I did with Johnny in transportation was I put a poster down there and said, why don't you work for us in the middle of the day while you're working in transportation? Instead of playing cards, or going home, or whatever folks do that are bus drivers. I know we don't pay the same rate that a bus driver will pay, but we pay something. And maybe you want to stick around here and someone can turn
I want to, can I go back to your two versus single line effort?
Yes,
Can you expound upon that a little bit more for me? How
absolutely,
that testing validated your theory?
absolutely. So they feed through the serving lines here, and each student has the opportunity to basically specialize their own lunch. Each line has multiple items on each line, and then they can tell like what it is they want, cheese or bacon or whatever it is that they want. So that, because it's it's a little time consuming to create those lunches, it allows for a nice even flow of students. It's not like they're all just gonna, rush straight in and get served at the very same time. So what happens, Dave's opening the doors for you there, is right in the corner, right inside of there, right in between those two doors, there's one POS system.
And two cashiers used to stand elbow to elbow with
And
each
just
other.
stand there and chit chat while the students are filing through. So why have them both stand there waiting when one can be proficient? You know what I mean, just kind of work right along there. So, and it's working the same way at the middle school. They feed through the lines. We have one POS straight at the door and the exit as they're going out to the cafeteria. And it's funny how quickly they picked up. I mean, kids are so good about it.
I actually got the idea from New York State Thruway. That's how some of them do that. They have a cash register here with two lines. The cashier just does this, and I go, there you go.
And we do it in other districts as well, like works.
They do it at Disney.
I've been visiting since we did it, so I'll show you something.
And you've seen enough flow through here that it won't become a problem in the future.
No.
We've been doing it for 2 weeks now.
No,
and
yeah,
it's running very smoothly.
Yeah, we wanted to test the waters before we actually decided to present it, just to make sure it would work, and it's working quite well.
And we have a way
And
to
staff
track that.
actually liked it, they thought it was a great idea.
And we
You know,
can
like
track
this.
that.
Yeah.
We can actually track the times. the
Through
kids
what?
go through.
Through fun?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so we can see when the first kid in a lunch period is served, the last child is served. And we can actually track that and watch that closely. And it's able to be.
Student input?
Yeah, so I'm sorry, I just had a quick question. What is that second cashier now doing? Would they be helping serve the larger line? Because if this line right here for,
The pasta line?
yeah, the pasta
It's our
line,
most popular.
yeah, it's enormous.
Yes.
And we only have one server, and if we had that person maybe go over and help serve, then we could get that line going a lot faster.
And you have a valid point, because what we've done is, because we have so many more people able to put hands-on in there, and you're not, part of the issue is, as much as what we love our substitutes, they're not always as quick as what some of our full-time or permanent employees are. So when we have to fill those positions, we fill those spots because the substitutes can't really run a register very well, and they don't cook. So where do you put them? You put them on the serving lines. So then it tends to slow down that line. So now that we're gonna minimize the number of substitutes that we're putting in here, those lines will go quicker. And in turn, the other staff members are coming over and should be coming over to assist. That
There'll be
is
more bodies back.
correct.
Because you're kind of strapped when it comes to a sub, putting them at the point of sale.
Yeah.
We can't do that.
You can't.
We had one
We tried.
to do that.
We try, and if we find a sub that can work it, oh boy, we snag them up real quick.
Then they go to
Or whatever. Yeah, so, you know. But I mean, if you know anybody, family, friends, neighbors, anything,
So
just,
this question, when will that get absorbed so that plan gets closer? Right, so that's one
Yeah, so my whole just question is, because I see one person serving, and if we had two, maybe one person that just does the chicken and then they do the next two, maybe the pasta, right? Or just divide that so two people are always there, because with just one, this line isn't gonna do anything. It's just gonna stay as long as
You
it
gotta
is.
remember Elma, I'm sure, who was the cook back there, the singing cook.
Mama.
Mama, she's the one that retired. We've got a new person training in right there now. What Elma used to do, and this new person will be able to do when they get more comfortable, is they'll be able to finish cooking, they'll be able to come over and do that. So you'll start to see exactly what you're asking or requesting. You just have to give us some time with a new brand new manager here and a brand new cook/supervisor here at the same exact day caused some issues on top of the fact that we're so short-staffed. It made it for a messy soup. So for the most part, we're aware of it, we're addressing it. Give us a little time and you'll see a big improvement. Because although when I was your age, standing outside in college in the freezing rain was nothing to wait behind 200 kids, today's generation likes it faster, and I understand.
Sounds like a boomer.
I'm old. And so you like it faster, and I know if you don't get it fast, I lose your interest, and I lose your business, and that's what we don't want to do.
Correct.
So that's what we're working with.
And I don't want to speak for you, but Logan, I think part of what you're asking is, if this person's no longer doing that job, why didn't we just slot them over there? And I think to their point earlier, there's 5 or 7 open positions that they needed that person for. So that's why they didn't just automatically slide over right there.
Sure, and I don't see that inside working, or
Right, you would.
inside jobs.
You would.
Yeah.
But hopefully you see hopefully you see we listen though. We're always trying to listen and see things and change things, make things quicker and better. And one of the things we do very well at the elementary school, you know, you'd be a good guy to ask on this. At the middle school, I'm sorry, one thing we do is we put multiple dishes up. And not that I want my staff to stop communicating with you guys, in case you see what they want, they grab it and they can go faster. Here, it's very specific as to what you want as a customer. I want the pasta with sauce on the side, I want the meatballs this way, that way. That's both the job. I'm not criticizing you, that's the nature of the business. And so we've got to find ways to be able to communicate still with you quicker and continue to move faster. So any help I can get from you, I would say absolutely. I thank you for your question.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, so now that you've seen our proposal, we're going to summarize it a little bit. So what will happen is once we make these adjustments, we're still going to obviously have our shared managers. We're still going to have our senior food service helper positions. We still have that one open position because we have an individual who is now a manager that is on pass her probation before we can fill that position. All right. And then we're going to be down to 14 food service helper positions with one opening of leave of absence because that individual is actually the temporary senior food service helper position. So that down at CSI. So depending upon the status of CSI, that gives her the opportunity to go back to her position. So that will remain open.
These positions are easy to fill. These are the ones that are almost impossible.
All right. So if you look at it overall, senior food service helper hours, those are your daily hours. This is, oops, where's the little pointer? Oopsies, wrong one. Where'd it go?
That's why she's holding on to that. I'm being.
Whatever button you hit, it again.
Okay. All right. All right. So, which one? The pointer's the red one up here, right? This one here. Oh, there we go. These are the hours that we started with. All right, and we're going to maintain those same hours. All right. Our food service helpers. These are the hours we started out with per day. And these are the new hours per day.
And that's,
We talked about 94.5 hours per day without managerial costs. And now we're down to 80.25 hours a day with the adjustments. So we're saving 14.25 hours a day at $13.75 an hour for a total of $195.94 a day, or an annual savings of $35,268.75.
That includes putting the 15 minutes back per.
It does.
That's in there.
That is in there. It includes adding 15.25 hours to every permanent employee.
Hopefully
It
we
was a
have your employee
2.75.
that doesn't want to.
Correct.
And I know your scenarios without managerial hours, but
Correct.
the change doesn't impact managerial hours?
It does not, because we only have the 2 managers for all 7 buildings.
We used to have 4 managers 5 years ago, we figured that was 2. We really spent a lot of time over the years. Even when I first started here, I had well over 55 labor hours per day. And we're down quite a bit. So obviously, enrollment drop, we have to respond to that, and this is a new rate on it. And the other thing is when CSI is done with this program, we're going to get that employee back to the break. So that will help us out sometime. And that's something to change.
You have any questions?
help me out with the math.
Yeah.
How are you getting 41.5 hours?
41.5 hours. Here? This
Yeah.
here?
Yeah.
Those are the number of hours per day. But if we're making them all
If it's
Oh, no.
14 times 3,
The senior food service helpers are in there, they're 5.5 hours a day.
No, the senior food service helpers, and
what's in there? I thought the senior food service helpers on the first line.
They are.
So the second line
Oops.
is FSH.
Because we have a 2.5-hour person at the middle school that will not be
Correct.
changed. That
That's
comes
it.
early in the morning and does production.
she's the only one. It's the same thing for the senior food service helpers. Yep, yeah, she's the only one, and that, those hours for that individual will not change. And I think that in the original, PowerPoint that I sent you, Pearl, did it not have all of the information did it not have this in it? These are in addition to what the information is in the PowerPoint. They're actually, labor hours based off the school, and you'll see in there where that 2.5 hour individual.
That's just a production position.
Yeah.
That person actually works up in the morning and works as a monitor in the school.
So she makes,
The prior, I think it's outstanding. I personally wouldn't give it back 35 grand, that's me.
Yeah, I get a passes over here.
It's admirable what it's showing, just so I'm clear about it. In today's ideal staffing, 2 shared managers, 17 food service positions, 20 food service helpers positions today. In a perfect world, you had everybody staffed.
In a perfect world.
Tomorrow, in the proposal, you have 2, 7, and 14. Leave out what's open. I'm saying that it's an ideal staffing, 2, 7, 14, correct?
Yes.
So, you clearly eliminated some way, shape, or form 6 positions. But how you slice it.
We just won't hire the sub.
Right.
the sub-
Yeah.
and what we did is the individual who was working in a coffee shop in the morning was 2.75. We no longer need a 2.75-hour individual in the coffee shop because we've been asked to restrict the hours in the coffee shop in the morning to only being served till 8 o'clock, so it's gonna limit it to 1 hour. So that's getting posted as an extra duty, just like after school and, at the, athletic study hall. So that pulls that individual into the afternoon as well.
It gives us one person working 2 jobs and 2 people used to work.
But that person, instead of getting just 3 hours, they would get that extra hour, so they become a 4-hour.
As an extra.
It's an extra
4 hours
duty.
on the book, it's an extra duty.
Correct.
So they'll just get that hour, it will not be reflective of what their contractual time is. Because if they're not in, someone else will do that, if they don't want to do it anymore, someone else will do it. It's like doing a banquet at night.
But isn't that pulling them away from having 3 hours to do what you're saying?
No, because
No,
that's
they
early
still
in
get
the
their
morning,
3
it's
hours.
7 o'clock in the morning, then they've got some downtime, and then their job starts here.
So it is an extra hour.
It is an extra hour that's posted. The one
Okay.
person will get that, just like after
Just
school,
like
we have,
we do
yeah,
after school.
with the, with the school
Okay.
meetings after school for the athletic
I
study
know it's
hall.
complicated, and sorry.
Yeah, it's
I wish
tough when you
could
open
say
it.
hours a day, it should be easier.
So does this essentially take the stuff that the students don't see, like the dishwashing, and it gets waited till the end?
Yeah.
The students are all served and
In
gone?
between lunches, correct.
Correct.
It's all hands on
Students always
deck.
come first.
And that's how restaurants do it. Restaurants don't have really dishwashers, well, they might on Friday nights, but during the day they have dishwashers. Actually, servers actually do their own dishes, so it's when there's downtime, it's all hands on deck, get it done, get back out. And if the trays are wet, you just get a few more trays. Because we actually looked at doing my compostable idea too, but there's a cost associated with compostable trays. We do that at the elementary, we eliminated a whole person at the elementary a few years ago to make that work. It was actually less expensive to go with compostable trays. We thought about that here too, but I would have to get rid of like too many people, and then it just won't work. So we're gonna stay with warewashers, dishwashers, we're gonna stay with warewash. Plus, I think you will get slightly bigger trays in the warewash better, or maybe you don't.
We love having more space for food.
See, I'm not too out of touch.
So this is great, I love it. I was just mentioning Ms. Calhoun, making sure I'm understanding this, so you help me. And this is not a negative, I'm just, because next year when it comes to budget time, I remember these things and I look to see.
Why I said I would have given up to 35.
Because in reality, today, if I remember from November, actual headcount, right, open positions not filled, we have 2, 7, and 11 actual headcount in November.
It's 7 and 11. no, this
We
is
had
7.
7 open positions.
Seven and-
Two,
Go
seven,
back to the
and
first
13.
slide. Go back to the first
That's
slide.
November right there, you see. Is that where you're going?
That's what I was saying, you go
Yeah, it
from
doesn't-
2/7/20 to 2/7/14. That's what I asked her.
Right,
Right,
but,
doesn't,
so if you go to November though, so we have 7 open positions, so really as far as feet and seats, I don't wanna say the other thing, we have 11 people, right? In there, so, and then again, it's not negative, but we're going from 2, 7, 11 actual headcount to, if we were fully staffed in next year's budget, it would be 2, 7, 14. And my point of saying that is so that I remember next year, I'm not gonna see a reduction of 35,000 in expenditure. It's a $35,000 reduction in budget.
Well, true, we work on sales though for the most part. I mean, we don't get any money from, well,
Right.
that's not true. We do get a subsidy, but we don't get our money from general fund or our own separate C fund. So our goal is to be self-sufficient no matter what we do, and this gets us closer to that.
Yeah, no, and I mean it, it's not a negative at all, it's just,
I would take it as negative.
for me and the board, it's not like we just found 35,000 that you can now do something else within the budget. We just, it's great what you're doing, it's fantastic. It's just what bucket we put it in.
Now, understand this too, as the future goes on, and I may or may not be part of that as I move on in my life. You're now at a skeleton crew for the most part. So what is the next thing to happen in the future remains to be seen. That's why it's important that we figure out another way to recruit people in here. Because I tell you what, if 5 people call in sick, Amy and I are putting papers out.
yeah.
That's the next thing. Running three school districts, that's extreme.
Do you think half of the problem is the number of hours per day? To me, I can tell you this, 3 hours a day, I wouldn't even look at you guys.
You're
I
right.
agree, you're right.
And I will honestly, I have that issue all the time with tellers. If I do not hire somebody for 5 hours a day, they are not even gonna apply. You know, and we're roughly the same concept. I feel from you guys, so I know.
you do. Everybody does.
Yeah. And we know that that's the problem.
Well, and I'm
But
just
we
wondering,
really-
efficiency-wise, if you were to, and I'm not saying increase salary, I'm saying increase hours, would that make it more efficient for you guys in a level that production would be better? I mean, I don't know, because I'm not food service, this is all you guys, this is just food for thought.
School life has changed so much since 2010, it's an amazing roller coaster right now.
Well, and I know with my kids coming through here, like, and they're millennials, so I know exactly where I'm closer to you. I'm not quite a boomer yet, but never will be. But waiting in line, they don't like. And I don't like with my son. My son has said, I'm not doing middle school lunch, I'll pack a lunch every day because I'm not waiting in line.
And those lines are nothing compared to what I remember.
Yeah, exactly. And he gets here and is like, yeah, I like school beans, but he's eating pretzels every day in the soda. And I'm like, no.
With zero sugar in the soda.
Yeah, but
There's more sugar in the milk than the soda.
I gotta live with them afterwards, so. But I just wonder if there was more hours maybe, or,
Well, we used to have a full production department in this district where everything was made from scratch.
Right.
Here's a lot of problems that come associated with that. First of all, finding the talent today to come in and do it, you'll probably tell me you agree with that. Finding the talent to come in and actually scratch cook today is very difficult to find. And if you do have some of the talent, they're going to be in a restaurant. They're not going to be in a restaurant. Secondly, the rules and regs that I gotta follow through the state on evaluating any recipe, I've gotta take someone who's making homemade spaghetti sauce and prove all the nutritionals in it, and the cost and the amount of time that's spent to do that, and the minute someone alters off that recipe, it changes every way the state sees things when they do our regulations. And they came in and did our forensic audit this past spring. They looked at everything. They were counting chicken smackers. It was absolutely, they had 4 people in here, they converged on us, and it was almost like, we're gonna get you, we're gonna get you. And they hardly got us, so we're very proud of that. But to add more hours certainly would solve one problem, and that would cause a financial issue for this department on the other side. You know, how do you solve that unless the board here wants to?
Well, but there is something that we can kind of float out there. we'd have to put the numbers to it. I think that there's more of a population of people working in transportation that would take us up on that, but what you had said a little while ago struck a nerve with me, but it's less money, but what else are they gonna be doing? Well, I mean, society now is basically gonna pay people what they feel that their worth is, and they're not gonna do that.
Right.
But if they paid them like a floater rate, if we just looked at that, they would say, okay, if you're already ours in transportation, but you're gonna come over, you wouldn't get this set food service rate, it would be higher. It wouldn't match necessarily what you're getting in transportation or maintenance, but it would be higher than if somebody just came to just do.
That's an option, but Maureen, help me with this. Your transportation bus drivers, are they considered full-time people with benefits? Okay, so I was thinking the 3 hours we would give them to throw them into pens and but they're already there.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that cost is already.
So really, you're saving on that cost then,
I think
if you
the
want for
concern would
benefits,
be a
because
bargaining unit.
they're already
You
part of it.
also have the risk of having those people doing similar jobs for less money. That would upset.
Yeah, you've got a
the whole
bargaining
side,
unit
right?
issue at that point, because you've got.
You'd have 14 people there that are making X, 5 people coming to make Y, that could cause a whole nother.
But be a bus driver, that's what I would say to that. Drive a bus first. You know what I mean? I get what you're saying, but you come to me and say, well, I'm not gonna do it. Well, go drive a bus for 3 hours, and then come back and see me, and I'll pay you the higher rate. If not, because we need bus drivers too.
Well, I even thought
So-
about creating a job and calling it a food service transportation job, and you don't have any options. If you want the job, that's what it does. I don't know how.
Yeah,
We got some options available.
But what if you got a lousy bus driver, a great food service person, or a great bus driver?
You give them an 8 hours. You put them 8 hours.
It's better than having a lousy bus driver and a lousy lunch worker.
Yeah.
Or none at all.
And the senior that's upset because they can't get their chicken.
Yeah.
Wait
till he goes to the academy. You'll take this and you'll like
You
it.
might like to look at American gloves and apron if you want to serve.
Oh, wait, you're going to the Air Force Academy, right?
Naval Academy.
Oh, okay.
Don't tell them they're slow as the Naval Academy. Do yourself a favor.
I'm sorry for bringing it up, I take it back, all right?
Whatever you sorry, say enough for whatever you believe in.
When they tease you, that means they like you, I hope so.
As long as you're on the Coast Guard.
That's why I said.
Excellent work. I mean,
Simple,
Great.
simple question, man.
We tried to follow 13 this, and that's why I used the analogy.
Oh, yeah.
Throw it on the table, what can we make work with what we have?
You got a bunch of openings, you're trying to maximize your staff and keep the product. Got it.
And we don't want to let our service drop. We still want to feed these kids as fast as we can. We still want to give them what they want, which if you think about when I went to school, it was the mashed potatoes or you brought your lunch to bed. You know, now I'm offering you 25, I'm getting 26 here. Maybe 30 next year, but half, but we will be too.
I want to say this, in my time at elementary, they absolutely love those Lunchables that you created.
That was 80s.
That was genius. And I've had parents say they couldn't get their kids to eat the lunches, but since you guys did that,
Why try to find the wheel? We just took the wheel, made it healthy, and made it look like their wheel. And Amy did a fabulous job, and it's all her.
What does it look like? It's in a little 4-compartment, eco-friendly container, all right? And each compartment has a component. We have little pita pocket breads for the crust, and then shredded mozzarella cheese, and then just a tomato basil sauce and fresh carrots. Okay? So they can make their own little pizza ones, you know, I mean, that seems to be the most popular out in the, what I call the real world, you know, where mom and dad goes to the grocery store. And then once those fall off, yeah, how many?
700 a day.
700-800.
No, we should make,
700 a day?
yeah,
No.
no.
Of those individuals?
Yeah,
Maybe 700 a week.
okay, never mind.
Yeah, not a day. No, not of just that one
I heard
component.
the
I'm
wrong,
sorry.
I heard the wrong stat.
But once they, if they happen to falter a little bit, we'll change it up and throw a turkey in there. Or we'll change it up and we'll do a ham or something. So, you know, just kind of keep the flow going.
Any other questions?
Any other questions?
Simple question, not a simple answer.
Uh-oh.
If you've got your savings is the right word. As Andy said, it's not really savings, but
Right.
if there's this amount of money sitting there, in theory, and you can't get enough people to do the job, can you not pay them more?
Well, that's
Contractual.
That's a contractual thing. You are already doing
Again, simple question, not a simple answer. But I gotta believe that a contractual issue, when you're throwing money at it, is a hell of a lot easier to overcome than when you're trying to take money away from it. Just a thought.
Yeah, it's definitely food for thought like that. And, yeah, because Tom and I were talking too, because, you know, we tried that with the substitute bus drivers, raising the rate, we didn't particularly see an impact. That doesn't mean it wouldn't work here, but, yeah, definitely, it's something that should be looked at and considered, and,
Central Square is paying the highest for the service in the county. You go next door to EPW, the manager's paying $40 an hour. They're having a hard time. So there is a huge difference between districts and this one does pay. But that's, with demographics, we would have most of the land up there.
What's the number of hours a day?
Right. I don't disagree with you.
It's just in this industry, it's one of those things where unless you're making money, it really is difficult to spend the money to pay the employee. So when you make your money for an hour and a half a day.
Well, and a lot of it is I'm here, so I'd rather be here for 4 or 5 hours versus 3.
Yeah.
You know, and work 4 days a week versus, you know, the exact same concept, you know, less like 4-hour work week versus, you know, I know, but I mean, just there's lots of options out there to look at.
And you're right, and the way to do this is not to be closed-minded, is to look at all those options. And we'll continue to do so for you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
We will leave that.
thank you, Rick.
Thank you very much for your question.
Good work.
We're gonna make a slight change to our columns, but, I'm gonna ask Mrs. Haskins to kind of bump up because she has, a commitment, unfortunately, that she's gonna have to bow out, so hopefully that's all right.
Well, she's getting ready. We have a family from Brewerton that's starting on a TV show right now, National Network, about all the lights on their house over in Brewerton. It's right now at 8 o'clock. So I'm sure you're gonna go home, you're gonna,
Let's not take the plane.
yeah.
Should we make a motion for cake? or
Hey,
what?
like, what do we do? Seriously, Thursday, or what do we take Well, the floor is yours. That would be cake after.
Okay, I'm hoping this is on. Can you hear me? All right, I'm gonna move through this quick because I was hoping to catch some of that as well. So, I was here last time talking about, goal number 1, and we added, the gender equality amongst the different classes that we have. Goal number 2, I'm gonna move on to provide guidance and support and literacy to our districts and communities, and we added and supports the region with internet connectivity initiatives. So, city has a new mobile classroom to take on adult literacy specifically and connectivity issues countywide. The new RV came by way of a grant written by OCO and Cuba Community College. Zero cost to maintain, funded through EPI and workforce development. They collect, it's $19 a head for the adult learners that are coming into this mobile RV unit. Again, it's an adult target. We're working with OCO to get those people on board, if you will. I did ask, following up from Andy's comment over the summer, and I don't remember which meeting it was at, you asked about the digital census that's coming out, and I remember Tom saying that maybe Chris had something by way of an idea of how they were going to help target some of these people that don't have internet or access to. And I asked Chris if we were going to possibly use this, and he said yes, they were intending on taking an active role, and he's going to advertise days and availability with this mobile RV unit, and tap into DSS, but that's tricky because they're very limited on what they can offer us by way of people in need, if you will. So just basic information that I have on that at this time. I have not actually toured it yet to be able to give you any idea, but if you've seen the ERV unit that we have, I mean, it was built to specs, and you walk into it and it's just a large classroom, so exciting. City itself, building our budget now, enrollment requests were due today, actually, for the 2020-2021 school year. I'm sure Tom probably got that over to them, and for Central Square. I didn't do this last time only because I hate you, I think in September last, so there wasn't a lot going on over the summer by way of students. But I do want to take an opportunity to just kind of fill you in on what is going on with our students there. I'm going to hit on CTE first. For the last couple of months, we've been attending trade fairs. We've had guest speakers and presentations from the likes of Alfred State College, Snap-on, Lincoln Tech, Bryan Stratton, Army National Guard, just to name a few. Students have attended construction career days. They assisted in fire safety night out in West Monroe. They did security for Central Square Home Show. Exceptional education held open houses in October at all locations throughout the county. And Central Square specifically for the fall, we had 3 students recognized as the most employable students. One was out of, sorry, I'll give you the names real quick. Culinary arts, she's a second-year student named Anna Tunis. We had one out of cosmetology, Nevaeh Worley. And we had one out of auto body tech, Travis Goulet. Each of them, thanks to Oswego County Federal Credit Union, who partnered with us, gave each of those students a $50 award. There were other students from other districts. I just wanted to touch on that. That's all I got for you tonight, just to wrap it up quick. Any questions?
Any questions from the board? No, maybe just again, to thank, I always say his name incorrectly, Mr. I always want to say Fontaine for some reason. Mr. LaFountain for the tour that he provided us. It was really, really good, yeah. Got a ton out of it. It was great to see the program. So. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for jumping up.
Right.
Dr. Collins. Hope you don't mind us eating people.
That was actually really delicious.
Yeah. Present well and you too.
So today is, actually it's bittersweet presenting tonight, obviously, but today is actually National Special Education Day. Do I need the mic?
Yeah, there's people at home.
Is that better? Yeah, it actually worked out okay. And this is the wrong presentation.
Yeah,
so can we
Pearl?
pull up the right?
She's not sitting at smart school, she's doing special.
So today is National Special Education Day. So every year, annually on December 2nd, we celebrate the anniversary of the federal law for special education. So back in 1972 was the first federal law for children with special needs. And before that time, if parents had a child with special needs, they may or may not have ever gotten an education. So if a family had the means to pay for some sort of education, then their child may have gone to an institution where they would have been taken care of, but otherwise they probably had nothing. So in 1972, the federal law was passed, and it allowed for children to be educated in our country. So every year on this day, we celebrate that. So tomorrow I will send out an email to let everybody know that today was the day, and so hopefully our special education teachers can be celebrated for the work that they do in our schools. Within that law, there are 2 terms that, I'm going to talk a little bit about special education tonight, because I know that some of you requested that I do that a little bit. So within that law, there are 2 terms that you hear a lot in the world of education. The first term is often referred to as FAPE. and that stands for free and appropriate public education. So that's really the main tenet of that law, is that every child, whether or not they have a disability, is entitled to a free and appropriate public education. And that is really what we're all about in public schools. And then the second tenet in that law is least restrictive environment. So you're going to hear me talk a lot about that. Least restrictive environment means different things for children at different points in time during their educational career. So the concept of inclusion, you hear a lot in education. Inclusion, the word inclusion, does not appear in educational regulations at all. Inclusion is a concept. It's part of least restrictive environment, and it's a goal that we have for all children. But it doesn't mean least restrictive for all children at all times during their educational careers. Sometimes children need specialized programming. And the regulations, the Part 200 regulations, afford for a continuum of services. So special education does have specialized programming, and our school district is allowed to program in highly specialized settings if we need to. So part of what Tom and I have been working on over the last 4 months, part of it I've only been here for 4 months because I feel like part of the family and that I've been here for much longer than that. But one of the things that I've been working on is programming for our children who have special needs. So once you get into the law and once you get into IDEA, when a child is classified as having a disability, they basically have to fit into 13 different categories. So when a child is a preschooler with a disability, that covers them when they're 3 years old or 4 years old. When they come into the Committee on Special Education, we have a meeting, and they have to fit into one of 13 categories. We have 517 children in Central Square who fit into these 13 categories. And I disaggregated them into these 13 categories. So next to each category, you see our number of students who fit into these 13 categories. So for example, we have 48 children in Central Square who are classified as having autism. However, we don't have any children who are completely deaf. That's a trend across the country right now because of cochlear implants, which is a very good thing. But medically, children now are getting cochlear implants and they can hear. So very often now we have hearing impaired children, but we don't have a lot of children who are totally deaf anymore, which is excellent. But with that, we see an increased need for assistive technology because they need systems or hearing amplification systems within our classrooms, which is where Irina and I work very closely together for smart boards and amplification systems in classrooms, right? So you will see the number of children in our district for each category.
Can you just touch upon, because a lot of it is self-explanatory, but if you say to the board, the other health impairment, we have 124, basically what that entails.
Other health impairment are medical conditions such as children with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. I'm blanking on some of the other ones. Severe asthma. Diabetes might fit in there.
But it's a wide.
It's a wide. It would include medical conditions not otherwise specified would fall into there. ADHD is the biggest one.
Yeah, and on these numbers, a student isn't counted twice, right? So
They're not.
They're not. So you're not learning disabled with other health impairments, because when I was reviewing this last night, I was pretty astonished by how many, the numbers.
If you had more than one disability, you would count under multiply disabled.
Okay.
So if you had more than one thing going on that was significant, you would be multiply disabled. But the committee has to make a decision on one thing.
What is the total?
517.
And our
School
total
age.
population is in the district 3,700.
Yeah, so we're around 14%.
Which is consistent with the national average. We're not out of whack in any way.
Okay.
We're consistent.
Is our breakdown in the categories fairly consistent as well?
So a couple of things are a little concerning to me. We are underrepresented in the category of emotional disturbance. We have children who are presenting with emotional disturbance across the district, who are not classified as such. Does that make sense? So we have children who are presenting with that disability but are not classified in that category. They might be classified with a learning disability, or they might be classified under other health impairment, but might presently be presenting with an emotional disturbance. So the committee might be meeting in the future and reclassifying them or changing their classification to be more appropriate under the category of emotional disturbance.
So your concern is that it may have been missed previously, or some technical capability may have been overlooked.
It's an uncomfortable conversation to have, and it's an uncomfortable term to use with the committee and with families. And there are functional behavioral assessments, there's data tracking, behavior intervention plans that need to take place, and our staff needs to be tooled up on that.
And consistencies among other districts that come to us with
Yes.
that. You scratch your head going, it doesn't seem like it, but that's what they came to us for.
And there are not enough placements for these children within the county.
There are ways.
Right.
So not necessarily root cause or drawing any correlation, you're just saying that's kind of a bright light to you right now that stands out, and you're probably can imagine what you'll be looking into over the next year.
Sure. That's definitely one that Tom and I definitely hit on. I'm trying to think. We have speech language impairment too, there's a lot in that category.
So I don't mean we're overrepresented, but that's a higher number than averages would say.
That's a high number. So just curious to me. So, New York State actually, a couple of years ago, put out a blueprint for improving special education programs for across New York State. So we're right on trend with what we're doing here in Central Square, and they put out 7 steps in order to do that for districts. So our district, now that we're creating new programs for students with disabilities, we are creating our plan based on these 7 steps. One of the big ones that is really important to me is parent involvement, community involvement. So I've started up monthly meetings for the community, for families, information nights. We have another one coming up on, our next one's on Medicaid. So the first one was a success. We are doing another one, it's gonna be fun. Tom's gonna help me build a blog, so we'll get the information out there. And I also got a survey that's gonna be coming out, so number 5, about providing a multi-tiered system of behavior and academic support. The survey is about our current RTI system and our process for referrals into special education. So it's just information gathering at this point, but it will help us when we're building our programs, look at systematically how those referrals are coming to special education and how we can improve, and just looking at the whole big picture. And just again, when we build these programs, I have some parents who are volunteering to be on an advisory council with me. So to really look at things that I might miss, and making sure, and I said put this out, but making sure that they're active participants, that they're informed about all the services and options,
opportunities to meet regularly, accessing services from other agencies, and that they receive regular communication, especially from my office. I've gotten a lot of feedback that that has been missing over the past few years, so making sure that that is regular and timely and informational. One thing that's currently missing on our current IEPs is parent training and counseling for any children who are in specialized programming. And so that is a mandate put forth by the regulations. And so that will be a corrective action moving forward and part of the IEPs that we build for our programs. I already have that in place with our monthly meetings, but it will be on the IEPs for quarterly meetings.
It's required that we counsel and coach the parents, just so I'm clear.
On the programs that their children are in, and that they understand their children's disabilities and how they can participate in the education. About their development, understanding the needs of their children, coordinated efforts between the school and home, excuse me, behavior management, and then the implementation of the child's IEP.
So at this point, all right, one more.
Yep.
So now we're gonna get into money and programming. So there's 3 scenarios, and you're gonna see these in great detail for the January meeting that we talked about that was part of our goals. But before we even get into this, I wanna just talk about the 3 scenarios, and they're not in an order of importance. They're not, 1 isn't better than 2. I'm gonna tell you right now, we wanna get to 2, scenario number 2. So basically, scenario number 1, that there's going to be a commonality in these scenarios, and that is no longer having city BOCES at our middle school. So the scenario, the commonality in the scenarios is the middle school, and so there is a minimum of a $600,000 savings cost. And so that is with 2 classrooms. So currently right now we're leasing out what is the equivalent of 16 and a half classrooms at $85,000. For us, 5 of those students are our students right now anyway, that are there at the middle school in the BOCES program. So I just really want to go over some things real quick. So there is no BOCE aid. We get no money back when it's a special ed program. You get stack money, and we'll talk about that. But you can get that stack money whether they're in your own program here or whether they're at BOCES. We're not the first district to have done this. Fulton has pulled programming back, and Oswego's pulled programming in Mexico. In Phoenix, they've done this before because financially it's much cheaper and more efficient, and that's the value added that the student's not riding on a bus to go to wherever that program is. They build it back. There's massive savings there. So scenario 1 is that we would run the 2 classes, special ed classes at the middle school. Also part of scenario 1 would be we bring back special ed elementary classes and we house them at CSI. Now in looking at that, we will have the actual numbers if we did scenario 1, which is not our number 1 choice, but scenario 1 would basically mean the hiring of an administrator down there, a nurse down there, that we already have custodial because that building technically hasn't been shut down. But what are all of those costs, and that will all be put in. You'll be getting that information leading right up to the January presentation. So that is scenario number 1. We want scenario number 2. And so what scenario number 2 would be, as I said, the middle school is the same. We bring those 2 classrooms back and we make about $600,000 there. But we nest those elementary special ed programs within our current 4 elementary buildings. So what Erin is going to be doing, and we're going to get into this, I'm going to let her break down, but I wanted just a 30,000-foot view of the scenarios. So Erin, again, has been extremely busy, and it's been great over at Hastings Mallory throughout this time, which has been amazing that she's been over there. But she's going to be going back and walking the buildings, and to really look like we did when we consolidated the 2 buildings when we closed CSI the first time, to find out where the space is. So in an ideal situation, we bring back the 2 classes of special ed in the middle school, and we nest the elementary special ed programs within our 4 current buildings. And then we put an alternative educational program that is not special ed but would be housed at CSI. I don't think that we'll be able to do that for next year for CSI. So let's say, in part of that scenario, that Aaron can't find the space that's needed within the buildings to house those elementary special ed programs. Then what we talked about is we pull the UPK classes out of Brewerton, we pull them out of Hastings, we pull them out of Miller Hawk, and they would be housed at CSI. We keep AA Cole's UPK classes just because the sheer distance that they would come from the furthest parts of the district that way to come in doesn't make sense with kids that age. So by doing that, frees up the classroom space, frees up 2 classrooms immediately over at Miller Hawk, frees up Brewerton, and it frees up Hastings, which would then be able to house those special ed programs, which would be a tremendous savings financially for us, but also a value added for those kids who would be staying in their own district. So that scenario 2, long term, is that with slow, we keep having the, dropping enrollment little by little, but that would eventually be able to free up CSI possibly in 2 years to have an alternative educational program being run there. And that would be great. But short term, it would literally be what we just talked about with the middle school and the 2 classes, bringing in $600,000 in savings. And it would be taking the UPK classes, putting them into CSI, and then using that space that became available in the 4 elementary buildings to look to see which is the best to house them. So in a perfect world, that would ideally be the best situation for us. So I just wanted to just jump in and give you those scenarios just to let you know what we've been working on. That would also mean that we would not be hiring a principal down for CSI. So there are things that we've been looking at that. It had been floated before if Pearl and I were down there at least 1 more year in that scenario, because it would just be those 4 UPK classes and a 12-1-1 special ed kindergarten class that would be housed there. And that's all that would be housed at CSI next year, which is vastly different than a full-on alternative school, which definitely we're not ruling out, but would not be for next year. So if you want to now break each one down.
It's a lot to process.
Yeah.
It's a lot to process. Where would you like me to start? You probably have more questions.
No, my comments to Tom, what you just explained. All right, well, and I'm not asking you to continue it because it's.
Well, give me the opportunity to say this. We have the middle school. We have 16 classrooms that we're making $85,000 with kids all around the county, plus some of our own.
Would be paid $85,000 per class.
But we're also, by BOCES, but we're also paying 20% of the Arwada on that ourselves.
Per classroom was $85,000?
No, total. We're getting a total of $85,000 for all that classroom space at the middle school. By us just building 2 classrooms of our own students would be the number right there. The 1 classroom would be $345,000.
This is what we pay in tuition right now for 4 kids in that classroom, 2 BOCES. These 4 children with autism, for this class size ratio to BOCES, we paid that amount.
What's the number?
$345,900. $345,000. That's the total amount.
$345,899.
Yeah. For 4 kids, 2 BOCES.
To go to our.
With no BOCES
To go to our middle school. They are in our middle school.
And we get no BOCES aid on it.
And we get no BOCES aid on that. So I'm proposing that it would be more cost effective for us to have our teacher run that classroom in our middle school. We have 5 students in our current middle school who have this disability profile in this class size ratio, and we're paying $275,000
And getting no aid.
in tuition and not getting any BOCES aid back on that. I'm proposing, and it's more cost effective to run this. Now, it's been my experience that if you can run a special education class, if you're running a class Okay, so this is 6 students, 1 teacher, 2 aides. 8 students, 1 teacher, 1 aide. That's how special education class size ratios are broken down, okay? 6 students, 1 teacher, 2 aides. The aides are always the last. Teacher assistants in this district.
2
Sorry.
6, 1 teacher, 2 aides.
Okay,
And then 8, 1, 1? I just can't read them.
8 students, 1 teacher, 1 TA.
Okay.
If you can run a special education classroom at half full of students, then it is more cost effective to run it in a district than it is to run it in a BOCES. That has been my experience.
Minimally handful.
Minimally half full. If you can run it half full in district, it is more cost effective than running it in the BOCES.
Right now, we're over 50%, we're
Right.
4v6.
Right.
Right, and so when Tom, when you say $600,000 in savings, it's not actually going to be $600,000 in savings because that doesn't take into effect that now we will have to pay the teacher and the 2 TAs.
So I want to be as transparent as I can be.
So it's 2 teachers and 3 aides, is what you're gonna have to hire.
Yeah.
Well, no, I'm not going to say
So-
that, because we may not have to hire.
So I don't have it up there yet, and I didn't want it to come out yet, but, so I'm fixing, I just did what, okay. I'm fixing program at the middle school. And as I'm fixing program at the middle school and I'm running more efficiently with some of the IEPs and the program configurations for next school year, we should have the ability to open these 2 classes with our current special education teacher staff.
So, but I have to say, the hardest part about this, Steve, and why it sounded confusing before, is we purposely want to be as transparent as we can without putting needless red flags. So for instance, there's something that exists in our middle school that I've never seen in any other district, not that I work for, but I talk to superintendents. I think it's important that you mention the limit of 5, as opposed to half the amount of special ed students, because that is important that they can understand that part.
On our current IEPs, it says consultant teacher 5 to 1. And we're limiting our consultant teacher services in every integrated classroom at 5 students. The regulations have no cap on that. So a consultant teacher can have a caseload of up to 20 students. Our integration is capped at 5.
It makes it extremely difficult to schedule that when it's 5, instead of most districts that say no more than half the classroom. So if you've got 25 kids that are 20 kids in the classroom, then you could have 10. And that makes sense. We actually have something so unique in our middle school that just says a cap of 5. So what we're saying is, when I had said it may not be the hiring, because we're just maximizing the resources that we have and fixing the IEPs. So I don't want to necessarily say we may have to hire or we may not have to hire. She's doing all that work right now.
If a student needs a class of 5 for any reason, that would be a resource room. A resource room is 5. So if you need to fix an IEP and if the student needs a class of 5 for some reason, they would need a resource room. So we need to look at our IEPs and do an analysis and figure out what's going on and what students actually need.
But just, my math just works in my brain, so, but $600,000 in savings, I understand we might not need to hire anyone because when Dr. Collins, when you've done your, efficiency, essentially your efficiency assessment in the middle school, you found that maybe we have too many teachers. So now we're talking about just shifting those teachers instead of cutting that cost. Otherwise, had we not been considering this option, we would have potential savings over there because we'd be letting those teachers go. That still doesn't take away the fact that this isn't necessarily a $600,000 cost savings.
We don't want to spend it in tuition, right?
Right, I hear you. Okay, so we still have that cost. By doing it in-house, we're not necessarily just saving the $600 because we can still save the cost of those extra teachers.
So even if you look at those teachers on what could have been accessed, is not going to come close to matching what those tuition costs are. So to hear what you're saying, if we had to hire the teachers, let's even say, rather than 600,000, it may be $270,000.
Right, and I'm saying it may be an apples to apples 270, so we're saving 330,000 here, and we're saving, because we hired the teachers we just let go, it's a wash, but I'm saying, I just don't want to be misleading in the sense that by doing this, we're saving $600,000, because it's not just by doing this, it's by also making our special ed
More efficient.
system more efficient. Some of the savings is coming from that, it's not just coming from.
Right, it's the transportation costs,
Yes.
Well, and to piggyback on that, when we're able to run our own alternative program, we have so many kids right now, like Lori alluded to, we have students elementary and secondary that are just in waiting lists. They're just waiting, you have teachers going, oh my gosh, like, when is that place going to open for so-and-so? We would then be able to shift and better maximize the use of our special ed teachers in programming that's going to have the value added, because now they're here and they're not on a waiting list. But it's like a Rubik's Cube.
Yeah, so in the spirit of, we've got to eat an elephant, we're going to do it one small bite at a time. So if you're asking me, do I support the concept that you would establish, you have the ability to establish those two scenarios within the middle school, instead of having to go to BOCES, no matter how it's going to be staffed, but those two scenarios I can support and say, that makes sense to do that. Now, ultimately, what the benefit is going to be at the end, we'll deal with it at the end, but you got to adjust everybody's, as I'm hearing it, everybody's IDPs. There's a lot of work that's got to get done. But to say, okay, next year, we know we got the classrooms, and this is a good idea, no longer going to send the kids into a BOCES class within that school. We're gonna, if the need's there, we're going to have our own program. That slide, I could agree to, right? One small way. Good.
it's gotta be the right teachers, the right kids. It's gotta align.
But
And to take,
sorry.
and to take it one,
You go.
take it one step further, in a perfect world, then the next year, BOCES automatically, city, should eliminate 600 grand in costs.
On our budget. Is that what you're
Somewhere across their budget, right?
They're gonna fill those spots with other districts.
saying? They've got their waiting list from other districts. It's my understanding.
And so we're gonna say.
So as a taxpayer, not as a board member, as a taxpayer, then I'm really getting double whammy.
No, we are not gonna pay that tuition, but we're going to always pay our
Our water, yeah, I get that.
So we will see some savings, but not that exact amount.
Yeah, so the 6, 12, right, 14, right? The 14 kids we take out, they will just plug in 14 kids from other districts into those classrooms.
So those 14 are on waiting list right now?
Somewhere.
There's waiting.
Somewhere?
Yeah, there's waiting.
Out there?
We just won't, they won't be our kids.
So the administrative budget for BOCES likely will not change, and we will still pay our portion of that based on our WAD. However, our tuition costs would go down by that much.
Right.
And then take that one step further, if they're gonna add 14 kids, where are they gonna house those 14 kids? Is it still gonna be in our building, or is it gonna go someplace
Oh,
else?
no, they won't be in our building. So
Okay.
there's classrooms popping up all over the other districts because they have the same enrollment issues.
Tom, you said that they take up 16 classrooms, and you're saying we would just have 2? So what are we planning to do with the other 14?
You can turn your mic on.
So just because it's 2 different programs, they do use more than just 2 rooms because they have other components that go on.
Perfect, I thought he said it was only gonna be 2.
I was thinking the same thing, I'm like, you're saying there's 2 programs, but they actually take up more than 2 actual rooms. I don't know how many.
So we'd like to do related service areas for OT, PT, and speech, the sensory integration room, counseling, those sort of spaces.
And so my follow-up question, what Tim and I were kind of dancing over here was, is this, 2 questions. Number one, you said that you're doing a full evaluation of all the IEPs. The numbers that you gave us before with, I think it was 4 and 5, of how many of Central Square students are actually in that program? Yeah, 4 and 5. Is that number, could that number go down when you re-look at all these IEPs, or have you confirmed those 4 and 5 would be in those programs?
The only way this would change is if these children moved, or if the CSE determined for some reason these children were not able to come back for whatever reason. So if they were not going to be happy, healthy, and safe in our program and district, then we might consider them to need something more supportive still, then they would not return.
But, so you have personally looked at those 9 IEPs and those classifications are accurate, is what I'm saying?
Yes,
And you
yes.
say you're gonna look at all of the
Yes.
IEPs for all 517, and you haven't done that yet?
For example, there's one student who's at our middle school right now who's not included in these
That would
numbers.
be included?
Who, no, will not be, because he's not safe.
Okay. But are there other students in this group of 517 IEPs that you're going to review that could potentially
Sure.
fall into this
Yep.
category?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So basically, you're saying that those numbers could go up.
Yep, absolutely.
And then my secondary question is, do we have kind of a 5-year plan, so to speak, in terms of watching the students coming up, that we would still be filling those programs more than halfway?
At the end of the day, I just want to make sure for the board and for me and for everyone, at the end of the day, it's great that you're going over this information, I think it's important for us. But the reality is, our administration could do this tomorrow and never tell us about it, right? They have a budget to live within, this doesn't require board approval. So I'm just at the board of the table, because it's really good info, I appreciate the opportunity for feedback. But this is your day-to-day what they'll be doing. If you were coming to us asking for $1 million additional dollars, then we would have to approve it, right? So I just don't want anyone thinking that come January, we're gonna say, no, you can't do this. We can give our opinion. The reality is you have every authority in the world.
They don't have the budget for next
Right.
year.
But that doesn't, but isn't there also a school footprint involved that we have to take into account, which is where we would come in?
Well, it's CSI?
CSI,
That building is open. So that's what I'm saying, the reality is, and again, I don't want anyone to get scared, for anyone that watches this, we're not talking about closing the school. The
No,
reality
that's
is,
not what I'm
what the
talking
board could do would be say that we aren't gonna use that building. In the meantime, unless something like that would happen, it's open, and, I mean, we don't approve what's in that building, or that's what they're doing.
I agree, but that was one part that needed to be said, is that we do have a vested interest in this, in the fact that we are trying to best utilize our space. How these people utilize the space, that is really in their purview, right? As long as it's within budget.
Right.
Yeah.
We do have a footprint issue that we have to worry about.
Absolutely.
A perfect example of what Dr. Collins is doing is if you look at the 811 program that actually showed a negative 52,166, that's a program we wouldn't bring back.
Right, that's not worth us building right now. So I have one student who is at BOCES programming right now. This is the tuition cost for that student. But for us to build this program in district with our special education teacher and a TA cost, it would be a negative run for us, so we wouldn't build that yet. Unless we have more students over the next 6 months that present with that need, which, by the way, we probably will. $88,734 for one student right now.
Yeah, because you're not comfortable with the number for,
Right, but my teacher will cost $91,600, and then the TA on top of that, we'd be back at a negative for in-district. But one student, now look at this student here, one student, right now the tuition cost is $146,690. So I think everyone, what I want you to understand as a board is how much our students are costing us at BOCES. It's a lot of money. I want you to understand, when you start putting dollars next to some of these tuition bills, it's a lot.
But so that, I guess, is my question with respect to BOCES. And, you know, I've had the conversation, but if there's 6 students in that classroom at $146,690 per student, that classroom is running at $800,000. What are we? That's where my question last year with respect to the BOCES budget, and I know it was the administrative budget, but if there's a teacher and 2 TAs in that classroom, how is that? how is that classroom costing
That is a great question.
$800,000? And, you know, what efforts are being taken at the BOCES level?
And I believe we can, I believe sometimes when I go and I observe at BOCES, our teachers can do a better job. I've seen our teachers, I've been in our classroom, we have great teachers here. And they love our kids.
But to your point is, for 6 kids, it's costing whatever, I can't see
Let's
the
say
number.
150.
150 times 6, $600,000 to teach 6 children.
Well, and it's only 3.
Is it only my head exploding? I mean, I'm serious, I'm like, this is not on you, Dr. Cole, this is by no means, but the average Joe sitting out there should understand that we're paying for one child $146,000.
And Tim, to add to that, there's confusion that some people, that's why I let off with, sorry if I gave you too much, but there are people that think, well, suppose we get 76% aid on that, not a dime do we get for special ed kids.
And it's actually, it's 900, like, it's not 600, it's 900,000, it's almost $900,000, and so there's, I can't imagine, because I've been told, BOCES has the same limitations we have with respect to what they pay their teachers.
Amazing benefit package.
But so that means that there's 3 individuals in that classroom. Now granted, I know that there's, you know, technological cost, you know, costs associated with the classrooms and things like that. I get that, but for $900,000, that's $300,000 per adult, or, you know, however you want to cut it, still it doesn't seem to add up. And so that's where, you know, a year ago, 2 years ago, several of us, when we were talking about the BOCES budgets, were concerned about where is the cut.
I think what happens, I bring it up every BOCES year, it's those damn legacy costs that they gotta make somewhere, that's where they're getting it all, I would assume, I mean, it's in another bucket, I get that, but there's so many costs associated with it, it's out of control.
Chris Todd has said, and it's no secret, if you have space, and you can bring programs like this back, where we couldn't bring heavy machinery or new visions program, then do it. And he said that, do it, because at the end of the day, they're not profit. We get that back in refunds at the end of the year. So he's made it abundantly clear to all the superintendents that if you can do this, do it. Other districts in our county have done this for a long time.
But question too, Tom. So now I'm taking this mathematically in my brain further. This is strictly tuition. So this does not include the administrative costs of those programs. It doesn't include the space costs. Because all
This
that
is
is included in
just-
the other budget that we pay our WADA.
Correct.
So we are.
This is just their OT, their PT, their speech, their
Okay, so
program.
it's services.
No, but it does include that stuff too. Like if those 2 classrooms that are at the middle school right now, oh, I'm sorry. It does include that stuff too. Like there's the 2 classrooms that they have at the middle school right now. There's an administrator down there, there's a nurse, there's a clerical person. They're there for most of that day, so that cost is a part of those
Yes.
2 programs.
But doesn't,
Plus the teachers, plus the TAs.
but doesn't that cost go into the administrative budget of
No.
BOCES? It
The
doesn't.
administrative budget, they tell you who's in there. It's the business office people, pieces of the superintendent, yeah, it's different people.
Okay.
So the 10,
All program people are costed into some program.
The tuition cost.
Yep.
so the 10 million that we spend every year out of our budget, that includes this or doesn't include this?
It does. It does.
Okay.
We spend about $3.5 million on special ed costs. Across the,
Out of that 10 million?
out of that 10 million.
Okay.
And another important fact is that even, let's take away special ed programming, and why we were talking about when we can build our own alternative secondary program, is because when people talk about, oh, well, you get 76% back, not true. You get 76, whatever our A ratio is, up to the first $30,000 and benefits of their salary. So if you have somebody at BOCES making $85,000, we only get that 76% aid back on the first $30,000 and their benefits. The next $55,000, we don't get aid back on it. So I just want to be very, very clear with the board, because people here said, well, we get 76% of all. No, we don't.
But this is all not true for the special ed.
Correct. Special ed, we get no aid back. We get,
I'm talking about technical education. So they go there for welding,
Yes.
We get 8 on that?
We get 76% up to the $30,000 and benefits.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, see,
Last thing I just want to say, sorry.
Oh, no, you're not going anywhere. Well, see, this goes into my conversation, you know, to the email I sent you, Tom. You got your fixed costs and you have your variable costs, right? Our fixed costs, we're paying for that school, right? The school got a new roof, right? We're mowing the grass, we're heating it, and if we're allowing another program to come inside of it, we can do that ourselves. We've already are paying our fixed costs for the building. Look, yeah, a portion of it. I mean, you get your $85,000 back, but to me, you're using that asset to help drive down costs. And if we have the ability to affect that $3 million out of that 10, $10 million, like I said, when we talk about the budget, it's a lot of money out of our $90 million a year budget. $10 million is a big deal. So at any time that we can look at that and improve it, improve the services that we're doing and cut costs, I don't know how you don't do it.
And the other big
That's why I
thing
wanted
is
to
the
ask.
value added piece. So if you just talk to our teachers, we talk about morale, and I taught for 10 years, and you could have a kid in your classroom where you know that a traditional setting is not right for that student, whether it's elementary or secondary, I've taught in both. But you wonder, well, they're there because they're on a waiting list and they're waiting. If you talk to the superintendents in our county that have done this already, they don't have that waiting list because they've got the program already. So now the teachers are like, oh my God, thank God, because we all knew that this traditional setting was not where the student belonged. Now they could be in a more intensified without being on a 6-month or 8-month waiting list.
Well, it goes back to what you said, is that our teachers are better, right? So the education experience, whatever it's going to be, is going to be better.
And they won't be on a bus going as far, and they'll be with their peers, their neighbors.
It's the least restrictive environment.
Were there middle school kids that are in the program not housed in our middle school? Because they're already within district.
We have some.
So are there some that would also be coming from other BOCES locations
Not
into the program?
currently, not currently. Our
No.
middle school students we have are pretty much.
We have enough. If we ever wanted to, I know superintendents that have said, we're on a waiting list for BOCES, we'll pay you Central Square, which is a whole new revenue list if we needed to do that. And North Syracuse.
Only if we can get $200,000 a kid.
Well, so we would establish a tuition cost.
That's what people do that.
No, I understand. I don't know about you.
So one thing that I want to mention is currently we have 23 preschool students in specialized preschool programming. And so that's why we wanted to look at this transitional kindergarten experience for our little honeys that might be coming in, who might need something that's a little more supportive for kindergarten. So we have 23 classified preschool students right now who are in a more supportive preschool setting, who might not be, we can't say yet, it's early, but they might need a more supported kindergarten experience, maybe a little extra kindergarten before regular kindergarten. It's early to say, but we'll look at that as it develops, but
And that aligns to our goal of having them ready at the end of 3rd grade. Where right now, we see these students that come in and maybe never went to pre-K or come from the Syracuse City or another district, and they're really struggling where they could use that year and then go back to their home district for that 2nd year kindergarten.
right, so the intent of this program, when I built this type of thing in the past, would be that they'd be in that transitional kindergarten for a year, potty training. Some of these children are nonverbal, so they're talking with their bodies and maybe not using words yet. So they need to develop a little bit more. And then they would go to their home schools. So they would go to their regular Brewerton, Cole, Hastings, Hawk after that for regular kindergarten. So they just need one more year to develop and grow and learn and get on par. for regular kindergarten. So maybe not the intention that they would stay in a special class long term, but just that they need a little more time. So I just wanted to give you an actual number of students currently in specialized preschool programming, so we have 23.
So Dr. Collins, if we were to, hypothetically speaking, if we were to bring everything, and hypothetically speaking, bring everything back in, does that mean that the $3 million that's getting tossed around over there stays in-house? Or are we still going to be paying that bill through other mechanisms to BOCES?
BOCES will fill their number. BOCES will fill their number with their waiting list and whatnot. We will always be paying the 20% our WADA to BOCES. But we just won't, we would be saying that.
I've heard that said, and I comprehend what you're saying, but the fact still remains. Are we physically bringing that money back in-house, or are we still giving it to BOCES? I mean, I don't know the answer to that question. It's a simple question.
Based on what I've heard, we're paying our water,
No matter
what we call it, no matter what, that's 20.
Yeah, what number is
The
that?
answer is yes. The answer is yes. The $3.5 million that we spend on the exceptional education programming are specific services that we're buying for our specific students. So if we did not send them there, we would not pay that bill.
But how much do we pay in our WADA, or in our, the administrative budget?
The administrative budget, we pay a little over $1 million.
Okay, but that would still
does
be
not
there.
affect the administrative budget.
Right, and that would still be
It
there.
would still be there.
And so would the technical education.
Correct.
The hope is that you bring all your tuition costs for special education back into the district. Most. You will still have 1%, you will still have some children who need specialized programming. Remember the continuum of services. You will still have some children. You want all children happy, healthy, and safe. Some children will need a separate school, some children will need a separate setting. Some children will not be able to be educated within our public schools. Happy, healthy, and safe. That's my 3 criteria.
Can you go back a couple slides?
Sure.
To the,
She already said thank you.
Thank you, bye. I'm gonna eat my cake now.
yeah, no.
Go forward.
Right there. My only point on this slide is I want to make sure down the road, because I said this the last time we talked about this topic is, so it's great, my view is if we can provide programming and administration's going to confidently say we're going to provide better or greater services in district for at same or less cost, no brainer.
Right.
I'm not opposed to administration saying, we're going to bring this in-house, provide same or better services, or I'm sorry, we're going to provide better services, and it will cost more on a line item basis. Overall, I don't think anyone here is looking to pay more. But if there's a program, I don't want you to get pigeonholed into only coming to us saying, oh, I want to bring this back because we're going to save money. No, like, make the pitch to us of why it's best for our students and what you think we can do. The bottom line number is what we care about.
Yeah, 'cause-
Am I off base there?
No, because your transitional K, you're spending money to save money, okay? I'm just going off of, I'm just going off of the conversation in my house with my wife being a physical therapist assistant and working with pre-K kids for years and years and years. You're spending money to save money, because if you fix them in pre-K, they're not gonna be a mess in 5th grade, okay? I mean, it's not perfect, I know I'm kind of generalizing here, but you get them, she always said, get them while they're young.
I'm glad you're saying that, because there's one other thing that wasn't part of this, but since we provided transportation to UPK, to school and home, we've had a waiting list of 48 kids. I'm going to tell the whole board right now, it would take hiring one UPK teacher that would not be part of the grant to mean that we don't have a waiting list. And it's not like these families are sending their kids to private places like a Holy Family. They're not, they're sitting home. Because when somebody leaves, we pull a name out of a hat and they're always there to take that spot. So we have 48 kids and we think, and we'll know, when is that, a couple months?
Yeah,
Yeah, so we, it's because spring break is earlier this year, we're actually gonna be getting that stuff out relatively soon, either right before, I'm gonna talk with Linda, either right before or right after Christmas break, so that parents have time to get their applications in, so I should know, I mean, we will pull April break to know how many kids, because we have to, the only caveat, and we talked about this, is we have to have 120 students in pre-K to fill the grant, and then everything else is extra, and those would be those students.
So the goal is to not have 48 kids just sitting there, not getting any, to your point, those are the kids that they're our kids. They're gonna be our first graders, our second graders, and we have teachers. And so just talking with some of the UPK teachers and first grade teachers and kindergarten teachers across our schools, they're like, oh my God, Tom, for the cost of one teacher, that will make such a difference in our district. Because long term, we've got 48 kids that are just sitting at home.
Oh, Aaron, since we provided transportation, is this the first time this has happened?
So that's what my gut is telling me, unless
'Cause
something special happened
I
4
feel
years
like-
ago.
I feel like we couldn't fill the classrooms before.
Right, and when
We did.
and what we, so I had to talk to a couple parents who have asked, they call and ask what is the status on the waiting pool, and I let them know that this is, where we're at, the classes are full. And then I mentioned different programs, and they say that they can't get them there because of the transportation. So either they go to a daycare, or, there's a younger sibling at home and they just can't get them there. So having the two-way transportation, we're still working out some kinks with that, Johnny, and, we talk about it all the time to make sure, it's our first year.
But we'll know in a couple months.
But we should know because we pull an April break, so information's gonna be going out soon, and we'll know how many kids we have. And I always kind of give the deadline, and, some trickle in, so we usually pull later, but,
Is that a potential position that, I just don't know what the certifications are, but is that a potential position that could be filled when there's a grade level, for instance, that has an extra teacher because there's one less session?
as long as they have the pre-K, the birth to extension on their certification, which a lot of our new teachers, they don't all have.
But any kindergarten, first or second grade teacher would have that.
Kindergarten, not necessarily past kindergarten. It will depend on their certification, where they went to school, when they got their degrees.
So you can teach first grade without that certification, but you
Correct.
can't teach, okay.
Correct, you can't teach kindergarten.
How hard is it to go back and get that certification?
I think it's 2 classes, but you also have to take a test. And the test is, not only are the classes, but, that test that New York State makes you take is,
Are there people in our midst that are willing to do that, or is that an example?
I don't know, to be honest with you. I mean, I talked to some teachers, back when we were really looking at, at least 6 years ago, 7 years ago when I was there. And one of my teachers, who was one of the lower teachers on that, the pool there, and she did go get her kindergarten, so she's been teaching kindergarten on and off. And one said, and I know you yelled at us, and I didn't do it, but Ashley did. Now she's not gonna be impacted by it because they're up further now, but that's, so.
Yeah, I only brought that up to build upon what you said, is there's a difference. I'm in elementary buildings all the time. There's a difference between a kid that never went to pre-K and a kid that went to pre-K. And like you said, we're investing in them now, because trust me, we'll be paying dividends later on.
Well, the helps of all in third grade, or,
There it is.
they're 60% of the 85 or whatever.
Just one follow-up question, just so I can understand this slide. This is all with respect to just the elementary, the other one was middle school.
Yep.
So now, for instance, that top line, there's only one student, but we still potentially have a savings, which isn't the only factor, and I know we're clear on that, but, so there would potentially be a nested program in that student's school for that one student who would have one teacher and two aides in the classroom with that one student.
I just put that up there because I have one child on my heart right now that I'm looking at for that particular classroom. It's not to say that I don't have some UPK children that I'm also looking at that would fit,
Put in there.
that I could put in there. But I know that I have one definite on my heart that I'm looking at for that particular classroom. So it's a work in progress, I'm building it, so it's just how my brain works.
reason, that is my son has autism, it's just growing ridiculously, and how many students are with autism, and how many students are coming to our district with these special needs. So I can't see that ever just being a classroom with one kid.
I think you'll see that with the trend, I mean, the students who are registering and coming in, our preschool numbers are growing, and just, the children that are coming to us are coming with needs. So, just important to know.
Thank you for the work.
No problem. I enjoy it.
And I must say, I hope you don't feel, sometimes when I make comments, I don't want you to feel personally attacked. I just, it's mind-boggling sometimes.
Keep the questions
to see
coming.
these numbers, so thank you.
It's good.
Agreed, great work. And so my final question is just that with, you said nested in each of the four. So I saw K1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So potentially a Cole student could be going to a program at East.
Yes, so that would be what I refer to as not attending their home school, students not attending their home school. What's important to note is those classrooms. It's important to note that the 612s would stay together, so that if a student started in K in this program, that they would stay together. So these two classrooms would be together in the same building, these two classrooms would be in the same building, and then they would transition to the middle school and then to the high school for continuity purposes. If we were not able to build them that way, I would not recommend that we build them. So that children do not ping pong around.
But
It's
that's
not
where
good
I was
for
confused.
children.
And to these guys, is that's why I said if we had to, we would pull the UPK classes out, which a lot of districts do. When I was at ESN, the parents loved sending their kid to Park Hill, which is actually where I sent my Jackson, which was the one building that all UPK was bused to. It would create that situation where two classrooms would be available in the same building.
Yeah, and that question wasn't meant to be
No.
negative. It was
So,
they're still in district.
the
It's
other-
better than sending them somewhere else.
Right, and then, so the other thing to consider,
Right.
and I don't know how far you take this or what we consider as a board, but I have been in districts where families have been offered the opportunity to send siblings to the school that the special programs are at, where the siblings are in the specialized programming, where the siblings have been offered the opportunity to go where their siblings are, where the younger siblings come up so that it's easier for families. And then the attendance officer manages that for the family.
Which is how we do it at Foundations in Hastings.
Right, okay. So, just some things to think about for families and making it easier.
Yeah, so great presentation. My one, I don't mean cautionary negative, but in the January, February presentations, this is my personal caution is whatever savings number we're talking about with this, it way different than food service, right? 'Cause food service, it's cost avoidance, that's not real budget. This should be real budget. 'Cause my humble opinion is, if, let's say at the end of the day, you can bring the program in and we can save $500,000. To me, that's $500,000 that we should apply to any potential increase of the budget or reduce the budget. This should be a net to our taxpayers, right? So I'm saying that up front. So don't pad it, be conservative, because I think we should be banking pure and simple. Does that make sense? Or did I speak that?
It's gonna be hard to bank it until later in the spring when annual reviews are done. Because I won't be able to tell you for sure which children are coming back until after their annual review meetings.
Or which new students are coming in.
Right.
Well, you'll never know that.
Tom just said, good answer, Dr. Mullins.
Great answer, Dr.
I cannot tell you for certain it's a done deal until I finalize next year's IEP. Like, I can't tell you the for sure savings until I.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. So commit to, don't state a number that we
Sure,
can't count on,
right,
because
right.
it's incredibly budget impactful.
Right.
What you're doing.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. It's as clear as mud.
yeah. Excellent.
Right, so to be clear then, what you're talking here specifically cost savings is just current tuition minus our cost of teachers and TAs.
Right.
It's not
It's
whatever
just a
equipment
yes.
you might need to furnish the rooms.
Right.
It's not, if we have to reopen CSI, do something, it's none of that cost. So it's not necessarily savings you're gonna bank.
But Kathy, these numbers don't take into account the cost of the teacher and the TA. It does in the sense that Tom said we might move teachers that we already are paying, so they're already in our budget anyway. But that is just the tuition cost that we'd be saving. That doesn't take into account the amount of money we spend on a teacher, but we may already be spending it, is what they're saying. Because we may have a teacher that has enough to move to that classroom.
Right. we
That
might already
bottom
spend it,
number
but-
underneath, if that, the number in parentheses is the tuition cost of that student. The bottom number underneath, I took out what our teacher and TA
Right, so
cost.
she did put the cost of the.
But on the other side, you have, yeah.
Yeah, just the tuition cost.
Right, and I hear what you're saying, yeah, it's not a fully loaded cost, it's a
Right.
snapshot in time, all that. My point is, at the end of this, whatever number you state, including it better be a fully loaded cost, because that's what we have to work on for next year.
If you're gonna
Right, so,
state a
yeah.
number.
And I understand you're not there yet, but that's.
Should be around 15 million.
Full spectrum cost.
Yeah.
So we're gonna err on the side of not being able to, you know, that we're gonna hire teachers for, we're gonna go with a higher cost, like we did right there. See what I'm saying?
So I have one more question.
I'm gonna say focus on the kids.
Oh, and it's probably because I'm a new board member, you guys, the rest of you probably already know, but regardless of whether we bring those 2 middle school special ed programs that currently exist in our building, but are BOCES run, regardless of that, BOCES is leaving the middle school starting the next school year, and therefore those children that are currently in that would no longer be in district. If we
That are not our
don't,
students, correct?
no, the
Yeah,
ones
our
that,
students.
if we didn't bring them in district,
Yeah.
they're gonna be actually leaving our district, because no matter what, BOCES is leaving the middle school next year.
Well, yes, because we're putting our own programs back in there, so that's.
So it's contingent on
Right.
us building our own program?
Okay, so it's us
Right.
wanting to house it ourselves, which is why BOCES needs to leave the
You're
middle
right.
school.
You're right.
Okay, and are they already far enough along that line where that's happening regardless?
So the deadline is the second week of December, that I had to get to Chris Todd to tell him, so I did, so I said tentatively, we're gonna have you go. And he understood. And there are districts that will say, okay, come here, that don't have the ability to do what we're doing right now, to say, hey, well, you know what, we'll take that 85,000 like we did a couple years ago. And so that's not gonna be a problem with him replicating that in a number of different districts that just have, I mean, empty schools, they wanna come into,
So at this point, our option is, status quo is no longer an option, which is they continue to be BOCES kids, be in a BOCES program that's in our district. That's no longer an option as of, well, the second week, so I guess next week. So the options are either we bring those 2 programs in-house and they remain at Central Square Middle School, or if for, well, I don't know what reason, but for some reason we don't, they leave that building and now have to go wherever BOCES is relocating.
Well,
their program.
no, if we weren't gonna do that, they would ideally love to be in our middle school. So if we weren't gonna do that, and we have that space, Chris would say that's ideal. Like, they don't wanna leave, but for $85,000, the fact that we can just put 9 kids in there and make way more money, he understands why we're saying, okay.
Right, but at some point, he needs to make a contract or whatever with another district,
Right.
so he has these students housed.
And he
So
says-
with the point that happens, we no longer have the option to maintain status quo.
Correct.
Okay.
So barring all the other scenarios and elementary programs and different services, what I'm hearing anyway is you're confident at this point, your plan is you're bringing back those middle schoolers, or our students, into our district, providing that programming internally, and you are absolutely confident you're gonna do that at same or better costs with same or better services next year. Everything else is January presentation, right? But, okay.
Now, very rarely do I sit around the table with my head of special ed, my business manager, Connie and Aaron, and we are 100% agreement with middle school. Like, that was a no-brainer when we saw those costs. But we could replicate with our own teachers in that building. There's been issues, I'm sure, well, you all know, because every time that there's an issue, I let the board know that they were not our students. So when I told this to Paul Brissett, there was a sigh of relief, and again, I'm not saying this to come down on those students that have the issues that they have, but I just know of kids getting up, running through the building with how many students that they had there, that to me, not only financially, but the value added to that building is going to be huge.
Would you say this is happy, healthy, safer?
Happy, healthy, and safe.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anytime.
All right, moving into reports, item G. Only thing under unfinished business, the Big Brother, Big Sister is kind of on there. Tom will let us know when there's some sort of update or presentations, anything on that. But Board of Education presentations at the next meeting would be your first, whatever data point presentation. So Pearl, can you add that to the document on there? Yes, but hold on, just before I forget, and then at the next meeting also, we moved our 2025, right? 15-20 year employee recognitions to that meeting.
So I emailed all of you just the building summary, took the student names off, you only have the tabs. So the first data point that we're gonna look at that you now all have sent to you today, this afternoon, was attendance, because that was one of our points. So you all have that, you can just take a look at it. It was sent to you, the data points for each of our buildings are on there, and it's pretty much self-explanatory. And the last one is that students that have missed 10% or more, which are considered chronically absent. So you now all have that in your possession. You've got a while to look at that, and we'll really break it down December 16th.
Thank you. All right, Mrs. Fisher, anything for you? All right, a couple quick things. I don't know if you all had a chance to look at it, but the Capitol Conference, which is kind of the lobbying day through NISBA in Albany, is February 9 and 10. I'm planning to attend, so at the next board meeting, because our policy says we have to approve any conference fees, attendance, all that. There will be something, I'll put it on the packet. So if you have an interest in attending that, let Pearl know. She'll be the collector of interest in RSVPs. But again, that's February 9th through the 10th. I'll have Pearl forward that info on to everyone. I'll give it over to you. What's that? Let's see. And the only other thing I had was, again, going back to what we started with, which is, and I'll pass these around. These are just a sampling of some of the cards and letters we've got from literally around the state after the passing of Mr. Wink. Really, really incredible. And I didn't want it to just be that, because I want to recognize Tom, everyone sitting at that table. It was an incredibly hard week on all of you, more than the week. And could not be more proud of everything you did. The community is absolutely beyond impressed with what you did, how you did it, how quickly you did it, and just the number of people that stepped up, filling in to do whatever was needed is incredible. I do want to say, and I want to make sure to be clear on this, this is not a discussion tonight, but there have been a number of people in the community, including board members, that have brought up, having ideas of how to honor/memorialize Mr. Wink. So I'm stating it out there both for the community and for us. After the first of the year, because I know a number of people brought it up, the discussion will absolutely come up about how to do that. Obviously, people have talked about, should we be memorializing his name in some way on a building? And so that will be a topic after the first of the year. I think it's important that we as a board do our due diligence well before that, though. Before we have an open discussion on it, I think it's respectful to check with the family and then also solicit input from the community. So, again, after the first of the year, and we'll address that. But again, thanks to all of you, and anything we can do, let us know. But you definitely carried yourselves incredibly well through that type of thing. And with that, I will open it up to our student board rep. See if they have anything they'd like to bring up.
Yep, so I was just going to give a little bit of an update on where we were at with the program, if you wanted me to.
Yeah.
So, okay, so Mrs. O'Mara has reached out to Big Brother, Big Sister about the possibility of a corporate mentorship program. This would be a one-on-one mentorship with employees and students for a set number of weeks, perhaps by semester or even the entire year. This program would not only build a caring and trusting relationship between students and a mentor, but we would also have the opportunity to introduce them into a career field, the STEM career field, if we go with Schneider Packaging. And from this, we can, these students will be tasked with problems to solve and learn how to truly put their energy into something positive. Big Brother and Big Sister are in support of this plan, and we will be working to see if Schneider Packaging would like to partake. Mrs. O'Mara told us that she knew Mr. Schneider, and this was something that he would absolutely be willing to do, and then his son, who is also a big part of that corporation, would most likely be willing to do this. There's 3 financial factors that we would have to be looking at moving forward. One would be transportation via our own busing system, program supplies, snacks, lunches if it falls upon the lunch hour, and then lastly, staff. For the pilot program, Mrs. O'Mara would like to look at just doing freshmen specifically, and she has said that she would like to act as the Big Brother Big Sister site manager. And in the future, when she does retire, someone will need to be hired if she decides to step down anytime soon.
Just say no to her retirement.
Yeah, it's weird to think about, right? But yeah, so as we do get more information and we reach out to corporations, I will be sure to bring that back to you guys.
Great, thank you. All right, open it up to the rest of the board. Any topics or comments? All right, superintendent's report.
Yeah, kids, be quick. Yeah, no, I don't. The only thing I was going to say, you just did it, is I met with Deb O'Mara, and we had a long conversation about alternatives, and I got to say, Logan was awesome in the conversation, and he just stepped up to that. And he just said what I was going to say. Again, it's been I want to echo what you said, that what they all did at that table over there, there were times, and I'll just flat out say it, when I got the news, I shut down, as though he's supposed to be the leader, but I never had to handle a situation like that. And it was very, very difficult. And when Connie and Aaron and Dr. Collins and Arena and Maureen saw me having to just kind of walk away from everybody right when I got the news, they were amazing in going there and just doing something that I never had preparation in doing. I could not have done it without that table right there. And the entire staff at Hastings Mallory Elementary, probably the strongest group I've ever met. So, but I can't echo what you said enough about that table right there. That was one of the hardest things I had to do in 24 years, and they were amazing.
Thank you. And that brings us to our final item. Carol, you mind clicking on that? So this is items for discussion and action. I'll make the motion to approve the Board of Education goals or objectives as I have them listed here. Can I have a second? Second by Mr. Lloyd. And then for discussion, sorry, I'm bringing my corporate hat into this. I'm going to read, just say at the top, sorry, bro. I'm going to read the 4 because it's just really good to know what we're putting our name to. So board objective, and when I'm done, if there's any changes, speak now, because these are our goals otherwise. Board objective 1, in order to support the district goal of increasing instructional engagement, the board will review data sets presented by administration on a monthly basis to facilitate productive discussion on budget and program impacts on instructional engagement. 1 or 2 points of data, not more. These discussions will guide 2020 and 2021 budget development decisions. And those, as we mentioned a minute ago, start at our next meeting, and they'll happen once a month. Board objective 2, in order to support the district goal of sound fiscal practices to support student learning, the board will, in conjunction with district administration, develop and post an outline of the annual budget development process that includes dates, presentations, stakeholders, and goals. This process will be communicated to the community and stakeholder groups, and feedback encouraged. Development will happen by the end of the 2019-2020 school year, posted in the summer for 2020. That was what we had discussed last time. Board objective 3, in order to support the district goal of sound fiscal practices to support student learning, the board will direct administration to present a comprehensive plan to to utilize the space formerly housing CSI. This plan will include program costs, challenges, advantages, and sustainability. This plan will facilitate the board's development of the 2021 budget. The plan was to be presented by the end of February 2020, and obviously we started talking about that tonight. And board objective 4, in order to support the district goal of fostering a partnership between the district and the community, the board will ensure the clear organizational charts are developed and easily accessible by the community. These charts will outline organizational structure, roles and responsibilities at the district and building level. And I believe, if I remember right, completed by the end of May 2020 was what we agreed on at the last meeting. So, any discussion before we vote?
I only had a couple questions.
Yeah.
On objective 2, with the dates and the goals and everything of the budget, posted in the summer for 2020, for the 2020-21 budget that gets voted on in May?
No, so the process, we're going to outline the process and have it posted by the summer of 2020. So that's our annual process, and then it's an ongoing thing. But yeah, it's not, at the last meeting, there was discussion, it's just, we didn't think it was doable to have all that done before this year's budget process.
Okay, so dates and presentations are more like generic, that'll be like every year.
Right.
This month, this gets done, this month, not specific date
Right.
or presenter. Okay.
Yep.
And then, objective 3, is that already done then? Because the objective is just that we direct the administration to do that.
Yeah, but it's kind of, it's there for us because we have to follow through on that, right? Get complete all the information listed, including sustainability, which is one of the things we talked about tonight. And so at the end of the year, that is part of our self-appraisal of ourselves, the board self-evaluation, is how did we do on these 4 objectives, including that one.
Okay.
Okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor? And it is unanimous. Can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Mr. Patch, second by Mr. Loye. Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. See you in 2